One day our boy woke up with a curse. He had octopus tentacles growing from his back, and to make things worse, a little witch who also drew manga summoned him. The girl used to draw hentai and fell in love with his tentacles. Because of that, she promised to help him, but with one condition. She could remove the tentacle curse, but he had to become her drawing model, and to inspire her crazy sketches, he would need to go out with some girls. But what our protagonist didn't expect was that women in this world were obsessed with tentacles. This story is really good. No more stalling. Let's get to it.
The story begins with the girl confessing to our protagonist, Xiao. The girls in the background comment that she's the fifth girl to ask him out just this week. In response, our protagonist says he's not interested in romance, but the girl ends up asking him to wait. Since he was rejecting all of them, the girl asks what kind of woman is his type. If I answer you, will you leave me alone? Well, I like the naughty ones, replies that shameless guy out loud. And to emphasize even more, he repeats saying he likes naughty girls. However, it wouldn't help if she became one because he would despise her anyway. At that moment, someone ends up showing up. The student asks if she heard it right. You, Xiaozheng, really said you like naughty girls? This was Balin, head of the disciplinary committee. Seriously, I don't have a second of peace in this school. Head of the disciplinary committee, please let me go home. But she said she couldn't allow students like that in school. With a pen in hand, the girl starts noting all the inappropriate rules he had broken. The committee didn't mind dating at school, but he was being too vulgar. All right, I accept your punishment, now let me go. The girl was confessing to Xiao and kept saying that Balin was getting in the way. Many girls had asked him out, but there was a reason our hero didn't accept. Meanwhile, the girls keep arguing in the background, and the only thing the guy wanted was peace. Our protagonist was a normal guy, but recently something happened that he needed to hide. That Balin girl kept suspecting that this boy had a secret. After all, it's not normal for a teenage boy to keep rejecting girls. I bet you'd do anything to have a girlfriend. An assistant from the committee asks her friend if they weren't being too harsh, but Balin said they were just following the rules. However, there was a more important matter to deal with, and the assistant said that the school had a mangaka drawing hentai. And to make things worse, this artist was drawing scenes that took place inside the school, and the head of the committee said they needed to find this mangaka and report him. At that moment, we see the drawings that this shameless artist was creating. Apparently, the person had no scruples at all. And you must be imagining that this artist is our protagonist, right? Wrong. The artist was exactly the head of the disciplinary committee, Balin. She even used her own visual references to make the drawings, if you know what I mean. Her manga was underground, meaning it wasn't aimed at the general public, but at specific people. The girl would get all emotional seeing the scenes she had drawn. This is what it means to be a filthy otaku. However, the comments from last week showed her readers were dissatisfied. People were complaining about her style and said it was too repetitive. Some said she didn't know how to draw octopus tentacles and she gets mad, saying it's because she never saw one of those animals in person. The editor-in-chief of the magazine ends up sending a message saying that if the manga's views stay low, they will cancel it. That already makes her worried because it's every artist's biggest fear. She had worked hard to get her manga published, but the mean comments made her sad. So the only alternative was to resort to the family's forbidden magic in order to get creative inspiration. Since she didn't have enough ink to draw the spell, she ended up printing it. This little witch's goal was to summon the most daring creature possible to serve as inspiration. Placing the papers on the floor, she starts to prepare the spell. Her fear was that the printed pages wouldn't work perfectly, but since she had done other summonings, she figured this time there would be no problems. Kneeling in the magic circle, she says the secret words, and a light begins to shine. She bites her finger and makes a contract for her blood air to appear. Letting out a loud scream, the light starts to shine even brighter, and that way, the summoning begins to activate. A creature with tentacles appears, and that makes her very excited because it was exactly what she needed. And there it was, Balin's summoning, a monster with tentacles and giant eyes. Well, at least that's what she thought. It wasn't clear because of the light, but just by looking at the silhouette, she knew it was something similar. Now I can use this creature for readers to look at my manga and have fun. You all know very well what kind of fun that is, don't you? But it wasn't a horrendous creature like she was imagining, since it had a pot of noodles. The one who was there was exactly Xiao, our protagonist. And that ends up creating an awkward atmosphere. The guy already looks around and sees those suspicious drawings. What is this? Head of the disciplinary committee? You like naughty things? Bai's pseudonym was Santa Branca, and the girl said she wasn't who he thought. Of course you are, I know you. We study at the same school and your name is Balan. What? I don't know that name, you're mistaken. That one is a liar. Oh, if you don't study at my school, then what's with that uniform and armband? With hands on her face, she said it was just cosplay. And this sketch of our school building? What is it doing here? She said she studied architecture. Right. And what about this ID card with the name Balin? There were no more excuses, and the girl starts yelling, saying all of this is her fault for leaving the room messy. Nobody likes to show their ID, so she runs to grab it, saying she looked ugly in the photo. The intention was to summon a very naughty monster, if you know what I mean. but she ended up summoning a schoolmate. And worst of all, she had scolded him just hours earlier, and now he found out she does much worse things. The guy asks if he had been summoned with magic. That makes her find it strange because he acted very naturally. The best option then would be to erase him, and she immediately grabs a baseball bat. Admitting she's a witch, she said she also knows memory erasing spells. In a threatening tone, the girl gets closer, and he asks what kind of artist she is to have those drawings. But like in any good old romance manga, she slips. That was the biggest cliche in an anime, and she regrets falling into a trap she always used in her stories. And worst of all, that dumb kid was going to get lucky with her. And that's exactly what happened. The girl fell with her eyes on our hero's face. With red cheeks, she said that shameless guy was very lucky. When she realized it, she saw something strange. There were octopus tentacles everywhere, and giving a sly smile, she gets happy because that's exactly what she wanted. That was the secret Xiao was hiding. There was no need to explain much. Whenever he got excited, those tentacles would appear. Since the girl was a witch, she would probably know how to help him. So he asks if she could solve this tentacle issue that started appearing on his back. The girl's eyes sparkle when she hears the word tentacles, and she gets extremely excited since her summoning hadn't failed. She really wants to use an octopus as inspiration. He doesn't understand why she's so happy like that. And meanwhile, she's all thrilled. So this is what it feels like to be wrapped in tentacles? My God, guys. How embarrassing to narrate this story. Cut it out, girl. If you don't calm down, those tentacles won't disappear. Later, he explains that this is exactly why he rejects those confessions. Whenever he got excited or emotional, those tentacles would appear. So the story about liking naughty girls was just an excuse. Until a few weeks ago, there were no tentacles at all, but out of nowhere they started appearing. He laments that he won't be able to date anytime soon. And if he gets a job, it'll have to be at a zoo, or else he might even turn into sushi. And in the worst case scenario, a movie actor. You already imagine the kind of movie. While he's talking, the girl makes a drawing using the tentacles as a visual reference. It was really good to summon because she had never seen an octopus in front of her before. Now she could draw with more detail. Even being a witch, she had never seen someone in his situation, and the boy gets discouraged thinking there's no cure. But since she performed a summoning spell from another world, it meant that this octopus wasn't from planet Earth. The poor guy already thinks he's going to be single forever, never able to accept a love confession, and not even hold a girl's hand. The boy was all sad while she was excited making drawings for her manga. She had already decided Xiao would be her main reference for the comic because that would save her manga. What do you mean I didn't agree to this? Look, just let me go. We'll talk another day. Stop right there, boy. At that moment, he becomes paralyzed and couldn't move even a centimeter. You thought summonings were something simple? When a summoning is made, a contract is formed, and you become completely mine. Holding a tentacle, she states that he won't be able to escape from her. The girl gets very close to our hero, and pressing him against the wall, she said that now they share body and mind. If something happened to her, he would feel it too. When he releases the tentacle, he falls to the ground. And to illustrate, she says that their bodies are in complete sync, and she can control them like a puppet. Involuntarily, his hand also moves the same way as the girl's. And with that, she starts to take off his jacket, showing that she can control all his movements. Trying to break free, he threatens the girl, saying it wouldn't be nice if people found out she draws that kind of work. But she didn't care about anything. The only thing she was doing was teasing the boy, saying their bodies were different. Some areas were more sensitive, and you already imagine what she meant. She was about to do something extremely painful, and the poor guy couldn't control his own body and was doing exactly what she ordered. In other words, he should give up, but luckily, she stopped at the last moment. The poor guy was left defeated, as if he were a little pet puppy. With blushed cheeks, Bai asks if she overdid it. However, since she had summoned him to her house, there were no more alternatives. Her biggest dream was to become the #1 underground mangaka, and for that, she would do whatever it took. When she snapped her fingers, he began to feel the force of an overwhelming spell. For now, she would let him go home safely, but they would plan the poses on another occasion. As soon as she deactivates the control spell, he takes the chance to attack her. Wrapping the tentacles around the girl, he asks if that's exactly what she wanted him to do. The boy starts lifting her by the legs while shouting, asking who told him to do that now. Weren't you confident just a moment ago? If that's what you want, then that's what I'll do. The girl's little heart starts beating faster, and she asks how she'll draw if he's holding both her arms. It was simple. He just had to release one of her hands, but she started to fall hard and was about to hit her head on the floor. At the last moment, he lifted her by the feet, leaving the girl hanging upside down, and that served as inspiration for her to draw one of her manga scenes. Days later, that scene started receiving many compliments, and the manga's rating had improved. The stinky otakus commented that the tentacle texture had improved, and even asked if she got a real octopus. Our hero was still in her house, and was watching her all happy with the ratings. She turns and asks what he was doing on his phone, and making an excuse, he said he was just sending messages. At that moment, he starts trying to delete the comments he had made on a comic platform. That's because one of the mean comments was his, saying she didn't know how to draw tentacles. Now that she had an octopus, she could draw very well, but she couldn't see herself to draw more complex scenes. And with a cheeky laugh, she said it would be good to buy a doll, and the boy told her not to do that. After drawing a few more sketches, Bai hands them to him to check out. The boy reads for a few moments, making her anxious to know if it was good. It was so anticlimactic that his tentacles started disappearing. And seeing the whole scene, the girl wonders if it was really that bad. Now that he was calmer, the tentacles went away, and he reveals that her drawings are magnificent. And meanwhile, she asks if he was being sarcastic. In response, our protagonist says the art was good, but it didn't have much plot, but that was exactly what she wanted. Then he gets mad, slapping the sketches on the floor, telling her not to underestimate alternative manga. It was because of artists like her that the quality of manga was dropping, and she didn't just need good drawings, but also a good story. In other words, the less fan service, the better. However, she wasn't very used to watching or even witnessing romantic scenes, so she has a brilliant idea. He would go out to date someone, and she would draw those scenes for her manga. That way, both the plot and the art would be resolved. He should show his true face and win over a girl, since he was good at giving opinions. But he couldn't do that since the tentacles would appear. Smiling, she says that's exactly what her manga needed, because he could date pretty girls and be a great inspiration. He repeats, saying he can't be near other girls because the tentacles would appear. That could be risky, and he'd be putting his life in danger. Making a funny face, she replied that she imagined he was enjoying it. Enjoying what, girl? Imagine if people find out I turn into a freak. She gets up, telling him not to worry about it. As a high-level witch, she surely had some way to reverse the situation he was in. Holding our hero's cheeks, she gets closer and starts teasing him, asking if just being near a girl makes him think naughty things. He replies that it doesn't, so according to her, it would be safe for him to date a few girls just for her to draw the scenes. He just had to get close to some and make them fall in love, and it wouldn't be hard since our hero was a handsome guy. If by any chance he could help her with that, she would break the tentacle curse for him. You mean you can make me go back to being a normal human? Of course I can. You even saw my magic level. She says that actually, she is a witch with over 1,000 years of history. First, he would have to investigate the cause of the curse. However, when it came to magic, there was no one better than her. However, she would only help him if he agreed to assist her with everything she asked. The guy didn't have any more options, so he ends up agreeing, saying he would make the girls fall in love with him to help his manga. The witch starts to give a malicious smile, and putting her foot under the bed, she pulls out a bag. While doing that, she said that her Cupid plan was about to start. He had already seen some scenes of pulling suspicious backpacks from under the bed, and he even starts to think that the girl was planning to do something evil to him. Wait a minute, I've seen this scene somewhere. I think it was a manga. That's right, I drew it. Making that evil face, he thinks she will use some tools, if you know what I mean. And he even starts begging for help. However, she ends up opening that suitcase and throws out some photos of schoolgirls. The guy even sighs because he thought something else would happen. In a somewhat weird way, she asks why he's so nervous, then says, "Never mind, it's nothing. These are photos of the schoolgirls." But wait, girl. How did you get all these photos? Doesn't this one look like some kind of student ID photo? She laughs a little awkwardly, saying she got those pictures when she worked at the school newspaper. But that was a secret. Basically, those photos were stolen, you little thief. And there are even pictures of teachers. Don't tell me you're going to make me go out with one of them too. Bai tells the boy not to worry because the first step was to find Benita. They couldn't choose just anyone. It had to be a girl who would attract the readers of his manga. A little worried, he asks if there is such a girl at school. It wouldn't be easy to find, but it wasn't impossible either. After searching for a while, Bai finds the perfect girl. Holding Killa's photo, she said that she would be the ideal girl for him to conquer. The guy is already trembling with fear, asking if she's joking, but she is serious. That happens because Killa hated men and was one of the richest students in school. Some even said she didn't like boys, but girls. Just thinking about her rejecting him makes the guy worried because she gave chills. After giving this information, Bai comments that he is very detail-oriented and knows a lot about the other girls. And in a very excited way, she says that if Killa likes girls, he just needs to transform into a girl. At that moment, the guy is already traumatized. He imagines she will cast some spell and change his body. Why are you so afraid of losing the handsome guy down there? You don't even use it. Looks like the girl had one. I'm not saying I'll turn you into a woman, but you will just dress like a girl to win Killa's heart. She pulls out a bag containing some clothes, and the scene changes to the next day when he goes to school in disguise. Arriving there, all the girls say the new student is very pretty. He was dying of embarrassment, saying that was very awkward. His first mission was to approach the Ice Queen and win her heart. If you are enjoying this video, leave your like and a comment. It doesn't cost anything, and it will be helping us. People didn't stop commenting about the new student. They even said she was very cute and had an amazing silhouette. Meanwhile, he wondered why that outfit had to be so short. All this he was doing was to break the tentacle curse. The guy didn't want to attract attention, but it was difficult since no one left him alone. A girl appears asking if she had seen him somewhere before, and ends up touching his shoulder. The guy is shocked because it was the girl who confessed to him the day before. When he turns around, he tries to act casual. "Wait, your face is familiar. I think we've met somewhere before." At that moment, another friend pulls the girl away and apologizes to the new student, saying her friend wasn't very aware, and drags the girl away, asking if she was interested in the new girl. Soon after, a car parks, and the girls start screaming, saying the older sister had arrived. Our protagonist wonders who that person is. A maid opens the car door, and out comes a beautiful girl. That was Killa, the woman our hero had to win the heart of. And the actress who plays this girl appeared in several other mangas. Seriously, guys, there's always a character with this appearance. The students all get excited because she was the most popular in school, and even ask if that was a runway instead of a school. Xiao can't stop looking at Killa, and even imagines this would be an impossible mission. She had an intimidating aura, and just trying to talk to her was hard. After a few steps, she stops. The girl noticed there was a new student. "Why are you looking at me? Need something?" "Very polite, huh? It was a misunderstanding." "Sorry. What do I say now? Did I already mess everything up?" The Ice Queen simply ignores her and walks away. She was called that because she seemed to have no feelings, which made her even more mysterious. From the rooftop, Bai was laughing. That's because our protagonist couldn't even open his mouth properly near her. And laughing loudly, she said this is the perfect character for his manga because that's what men like. "Are you sure you want me to pursue this noble lady? Have you thought about what will happen if we get caught?" He was trying to convince the little witch to change her mind, but she said that if it was a job, that would be the best thing that could happen. Imagine a story where an otaku disguises himself as a girl to get close to a girl he likes, and then, at the time of dating, she discovers he is a guy. The shameless girl is already imagining this scene in her manga, saying it would bring many views, and she even mentions it would only be revealed that he was a man at the final moments, if you know what I mean. Xiao told her to be quiet and say no more. He knew that if he was exposed, the Ice Queen's fans would finish him. Since the witch was part of the student council, she said she could get support to help him. His top priority now was to disguise himself and get close to Killa, and finally win her heart and start dating. Using her connections, the witch placed our protagonist in the same classroom as that girl. At that moment, he hit the table, and it was precisely Killa. He said he was lucky because he was sitting next to the noble lady, and this was a golden opportunity. The teacher said the attendance would start. Before anything, he decided to give the girl a simple greeting to force a friendship. As expected, the Ice Queen responded with a cold and dry, "Hello?" Even though they were less than a meter apart. It was like they were at the farthest point in the galaxy. The teacher said the name Xia Zheng, and our hero said nothing. Repeating our hero's name, the teacher asked if he had missed class. Then he got scared and jumped, shouting that he was here. The students were surprised by the name of the new transfer student, and some in the back commented that the name was very pretty, but seemed very familiar. The name was very similar to Xiao Zheng, the popular boy the girls liked. Killa repeated the name of our protagonist, who changed from Xiao to Xia. Meanwhile, the poor guy was blushing, saying Bai had chosen the worst possible name. At that moment, the girls in the back started commenting that the new student looked a bit like someone else, and he already thought he had been discovered, his cheeks turning red from nervousness. Before the girls could comment on who our hero's identity was, the teacher banged on the table. She said no one should be embarrassing the new student. Besides, no one would pretend to be another gender and forge documents just to attend class. That was exactly what he did. Put on women's clothes and even forged documents. Right after, she asked the girl Xia to sit down and pay attention to the lessons. He did exactly that. All he needed to do now was get along with Killa, and for that, he needed to get close to her. The girl was repeating our hero's name, Xia Zheng, and keep this information well because it will be important. Our hero turned to her and asked if the girl's name was Killa. Pretending to be shy, he said he hadn't brought his textbooks and asked if he could sit with her to follow the lesson. In a slightly different way, she said it was okay. Then, sneaky, he dragged his desk over until he got next to her. Right after, he started getting closer, pretending to be interested in knowing the content of the book. Deep down, this shameless guy was giving evil laughs, saying he had already completed the hardest part. However, the Ice Queen was still very serious, showing no feelings. The next step would be difficult, and he didn't know where to start. He thought of pretending to faint and fall on her, but because of his tentacle curse, that would be risky. Another idea was to make an announcement calling everyone's attention, or simply take the initiative and immediately confess to the girl. But all these were risky options, and he might leave school without life. Even if the situation was complicated, he couldn't just stay still waiting for something to happen, because the real-life plot was not like manga. At that moment, that mischievous girl put her hand on his leg. The guy froze, not knowing if it was in his head or real. In the purest innocence, she got closer to our protagonist and asked if he was okay. It seemed like the girl was trying to sniff him, and the guy's cheeks turned red thinking she was crazy, but Killa had intensely purple eyes. "It looks like you're really nervous. Did something happen?" She started giving those crazy tsundere laughs. If you don't know what tsundere is, it's those characters who are cute and at the same time crazy, like Jiraiya turned up. The kid froze, and it was like several voices were saying his name, literally like a magical spell. And on top of that, Killa got closer trying to kiss him. At that moment, it was as if he heard a snap and broke free from that hypnosis. The Ice Queen was staring at him. Then the boy made an excuse saying he needed to go to the bathroom, and he quickly ran away from there. "You're crazy, my friend. It's not worth it." He didn't know if that was just his imagination, but the feeling was like he was falling into an abyss. He needed to talk to Balin and clear up the doubts about what had happened. But in front of the bathroom, he found himself in a dead end. And he ended up choosing the option I'm sure you would choose. Lately, we're only getting works with shameless protagonists, but I know that's what you like. Finally, he ended up entering the women's bathroom. Arriving there, he said he wouldn't drink water all week to avoid having to go to the bathroom. At that moment, the door lock started moving. "I'm screwed," he thought. And before he got caught, he opened the door and asked who was there. The silhouette of a person said girls shouldn't use the bathroom that way. Who was there was the little witch playing a prank on the boy and asked him to be quiet. A bit annoyed, he asked if she scolded students even inside the bathroom and asked how she opened the door. Very proud of her magic, she said that was a magic skill, and the guy asked why she was so convinced of that power. Bai was holding a magnet, and the boy asked what she was hiding, but she said it was just some toilet paper. Right after, she closed the door. Alone in the bathroom, she asked how the progress with Killa was, although they had spent less than 20 minutes together. The little witch said it was strange because he looked very cute today and started lifting her skirt. The guy asked what she meant by cute, looking down there. At that moment, he remembered what he wanted to ask her. Xiao told what had happened and said it was like he had been hypnotized by her. Some strange images came to his mind, and he even saw the scene of her unbuttoning her clothes. She got close and tried to devour him. At least that's how he said it. And when they were about to kiss, he woke up. It was as if he had been completely enchanted by her. The witch said that is done by magical arts, or at least something similar. And surprisingly, she said she understood everything. It was natural for him to feel tempted by a beautiful and mysterious woman, so it shouldn't be anything supernatural. And she even teased him, saying she interrupted his bathroom visit, implying he was going to do bad things. The guy heard a noise and ended up putting his hand on her mouth, telling her to be quiet. Bai wasn't understanding anything and started to want to scream, but he repeated telling her to be quiet because someone was outside. It was the girl who had confessed to him at the beginning of the week, and they were talking about the new student. Then there is that classic scene where the protagonist gets stuck in the bathroom with another girl. Too bad it's not you in his place. The witch told the kid to take that dirty hand off her mouth, and letting out a sigh of relief, he said he was lucky they weren't caught. When they entered the bathroom, the atmosphere became even tenser because they couldn't make noise. The girls were talking about how to get to Xiao, and that it was difficult because he was very popular. Meanwhile, he was inside the bathroom with the witch. They were cramped, so one kept pushing the other against the wall. But the witch got scared because they had touched his breasts. That caused a noise and both got tense. Outside, a girl said she would wait for her friend outside. With a frightened look, Balin asked what that rogue was doing, and she said he was pressing her too much against the wall. The squeeze was so strong, the airbag exploded. And as you already know, he can't get excited because that ends up invoking the tentacle curse. And that is exactly what happens. That bathroom gets totally infested with octopus tentacles. From here, the scene is more cringe than the little dragon's work I showed in the previous video. They start screaming inside the bathroom, and the other student notices it. Her cheeks blush when she realizes it was the voice of two girls. And with that, she runs out saying she wouldn't interrupt them. Right after, the witch asks if they were already gone. It was safe to get out of there. but he couldn't leave with all those tentacles. Xiao comments that something is poking him, and since he is only witnessing bizarre and strange things, he already imagines it's something else, and ends up pushing the girl with his tentacle. It seems I underestimated you, didn't I? Tell me quickly what you're hiding there. She answers it was just a magnet. To try to disguise this embarrassing and cringe scene, she said they needed to focus on the plan to win Killa. If you're enjoying this work, leave a like and a comment because it's very hard to bring works in other languages, and even harder works with cringe scenes. The boy asks if the witch had a plan, and she said obviously. As a good otaku, she always read romances, so they could put that into practice. The best way to make a girl fall in love with you was by saving her, but they were going to do the opposite. They were going to create a situation for Killa to save him. The guy didn't want that much because everything was already too embarrassing, but Bai insisted that he should be saved by her. Striking otaku poses, she said everything would go according to her plan all night and that Killa just had to save him from an embarrassing situation. Adjusting her clothes, Bai asked how many times they had interacted, and the protagonist said it was only once. So no matter how cool or pretty she appeared, she was still human and wouldn't stop protecting a new student. And the girl probably liked him. For what, right? She took Xiao's uniform and tucked it inside her skirt. The guy kept saying that the outfit looked weird that way, but the disciplinary committee leader told the kid to be quiet and trust her. The scene returns to the classroom. The Ice Queen had been there all that time waiting for our hero. She was worried because she thought Zia had gotten sick, or maybe her gaze had driven the new girl away. The bell rang, and they had to change classrooms. Poor Killa couldn't stop worrying about the new student, and even asked if she should go after her. At that moment, some girls commented if it wasn't the transfer student standing in the hallway. And they also said the disciplinary council caught her doing something wrong. The protagonist noticed everyone was looking at him. This scene was ridiculous and embarrassing. Bai said that according to Article 35 of the school rules, uniforms must be clean and neat, but she had her uniform tucked inside her skirt. And she started pulling the uniform, telling her not to dress like a slob. The guy was dying of embarrassment, wondering if this was really necessary. And the disciplinary committee leader kept scolding her in front of everyone, saying she would be punished. At that moment, someone appeared to save the new girl. It was Killa, and she said the student had just transferred and probably didn't know the rules, so they didn't need to be so strict. But rules were rules, and had to be followed. Otherwise, she would be punished, and asked if the Ice Queen also wanted to be punished. The girl simply said the committee leader was annoying. Noticing the plan was working, our hero said he didn't know girls acted like that too, trying to protect the weaker ones. Then the Ice Queen simply held our hero's hands. The guy's cheeks blushed, thinking they only talked for a moment and were already like that. And right after, she dragged Xiao away while Bai waved goodbye. Winking and sticking her tongue out, she said she was very good at romantic plans. And even the guy didn't believe this would work. He asked Miss Killa where they were going, and the girl said they were running from the disciplinary committee. If she bothers you again, let me know. She won't dare mess with me. That's the girl who's tough. Noticing she was still holding our hero's hands, she blushed. And right after, she let go, apologizing and saying it was unintentional. The guy froze like a statue, saying she was very cute when embarrassed. Then she asked why Sia took so long in the bathroom, and if she had scared her because she wasn't good at socializing. The guy said it was nothing like that, and that he was just anxious because it was the first class. But to be honest, he was very scared. Killa sighed, saying that was good. Then she made an excuse, telling the new girl not to misunderstand. She wasn't helping but just hated seeing people acting arrogantly. At that moment, he was sure this girl was a tsundere, since even though she was cute, she pretended to be tough and serious, but it was already a big step to count on her help. That could be seen as progress. At that moment, a boy appeared calling for Killa. He was extremely in love and asked if she had received his letter. Since she was at the appointed place, it meant she had accepted his dating request. And when he looked at the girl, our hero noticed she was a little tense and scared. He even imagined it was the work of that cursed little witch who always caused trouble. Killa was really very scared, and her body was trembling. He knew he had to do something because that boy seemed out of control. In response, she said she didn't know him and hadn't received his letter. But the kid insisted they had met in gym class and had planned to go out together. Repeating, she said she didn't know him and hadn't agreed to anything. It seemed the kid had been bewitched or something like that. You did all those things in front of me. Of course you want to go out with me. Even our hero was getting irritated. But the crazy guy ran up to her saying he had been seduced that day. He was about to throw himself on the girl. And even trying to back off, it wouldn't be in time because he was very close. At the last moment, our protagonist grabbed the boy's hands. Hey, student, aren't you going a little too far? This creamy one is mine. Well, he could have said that. I'm sure she would melt all over. Looking sideways, the girl's cheeks blush. She gives a little tap for the Ice Queen to move away, and keeps squeezing that boy's hands, telling him to get out of there. He makes an excuse saying he just doesn't fight with her because she's a girl. And squeezing the hands, Zia asks what he said. Making a JoJo face, she tells the kid to get out of there and stop embarrassing the boys at school. The guy manages to free himself and quickly runs away to avoid more embarrassment. Turning to the Ice Queen, he asks if she was okay, and the girl was very close to his face, creating a very romantic scene. This is the right moment for him to kiss her, but, as we already know, he has the tentacle curse and ends up pulling away. But she wanted to say something to him, but since she was a tsundere, she couldn't show her feelings so easily. New girl, let's get out of here quick. That boy might come back. Later, she gets into the car to leave. Her driver asks how her day was, and starts looking in the rearview mirror, noticing that her young lady looks strange. The girl was redder than a bell pepper, and wanted to ask something to the driver but didn't know how to say it. Well, Sister Xing, have you ever felt your heart race unexpectedly? Of course. Last night I was losing a battle with my guild, and my heart raced when we almost lost. No, that's not what I mean. Has your heart ever raced because of someone? The driver freaks out, asking if the young lady had fallen in love with someone. Killa says it's not ridiculous to love someone, but the driver insists that's love, and says she has seen many romance movies. The Ice Queen blushes, wondering if what she's feeling is really love. And in a cute way, she asks her driver what she should do if she liked someone. Get your notebook ready to write down all the tips from this driver, because she's going to say everything she learned watching action and romance movies. Just like in the movies, the young lady couldn't let the other person know her real intentions, so she had to act silently. But if I hide my feelings, how will the person know I like her? That's where the main part comes in, my dear. First, you need to test the person and make sure they like you too. For that, you must give a shocking enough gift to leave an impression. Did you write everything down? Learn from Killa how to impress with a gift. Later at home, our protagonist talks with the witch about what happened, and she says she didn't send any boy to try to attack Killa. The next day, he comments that the little witch failed her tasks. Killa approaches, and shyly says she got a book for Zia. Right after, the girl sits anxiously for him to receive that gift that will leave an impression. She was in love, and wanted to show that to the new girl. At that moment, our protagonist imagines she gave the book just so he wouldn't sit next to her anymore. It was like she was saying she didn't want contact with him, so he would have to come up with another plan to get closer to the Ice Queen. When he turns his attention back to the book he received from her, something surprises him. The guy gets so scared he closes the book at once. He couldn't believe he had received that gift from Killa. Did you take good notes of Killa's love advice? Inside the book was lingerie. The crazy guy starts screaming, and in the back of the room, Killa notices the new girl received her gift and says that was shocking enough to leave an impression. I think it was too shocking. It can't be. Someone simply forgot this here, it must be. On top of that, it's warm. Someone just used this. The one who gave him that book was exactly Killa, but he didn't want to accept that it was hers. Looking back, the boy wonders if it was really her who did that. But she has a very innocent face, and also seemed cold and elegant, so it was unlikely she did that. One of the classmates tells him to stop looking back and pay attention to the class. The boy covers up, saying he just wanted to ask what page they were on. Right after, he takes that piece of clothing and puts it in his backpack, saying no one can see that. If someone found it, it could cause the biggest problem. Then he starts thinking who put that inside the book. If it was the Ice Queen behind it, it meant she wanted to flirt with him. And we see her doing the universal flirting gesture, playing with her hair. She was trembling, showing some nervousness about the situation. Later, while she was leaving, someone calls her name. We see it was our protagonist, and the girl stands still, waiting for him to say something. Finally, she looks back asking what happened. Xiao hesitated and couldn't say anything. Then he makes an excuse, saying he was thankful she dealt with the disciplinary committee leader yesterday morning, and the girl said it was nothing. Without much talking, she turns around and says, if Sia has nothing more to say, she's leaving. But she says to wait, because she has one more thing to say, and asks if he missed anything important. The girl gets tense because she knew exactly what he was saying. Saying no, she runs away very embarrassed. Sighing, he said it would be very unlikely that she had done that. Besides, the Ice Queen was cold and elegant, but if it wasn't her, it would have to be some other girl. At that moment, his phone starts ringing, and he picks it up to read the message. It was Bai saying they caught the boy who tried to attack Killa. Walking down the hallway, the girl sighs very loudly. She was happy imagining that the new girl realized that gift was given by her, and she even saw the blonde putting her gift inside the backpack. Extremely happy, she said Zia is a sweet girl. I don't know if I'm scared, or if I like this Killa. Later, the driver asks if that shocking gift was a success. Giving an angelic smile, she said it went very well, and that the girl liked the gift she gave. The driver asks what gift she gave. With blushing cheeks, she couldn't say it was lingerie, so she said it was a gift overflowing with her love. It was probably some kind of handmade candy. By the way, my young lady is a pure and innocent girl. Poor woman if she really thinks that. What should be the next step, Mr. Xing? The next step would be to become absolutely indispensable in that person's life so that they can't survive without your help. Wow, now I understand. I must make it so she can't live without me anymore. And giving that crazy smile, she says, Sia will be only hers. You can already imagine where this story is heading. Even the girl's employee noticed that her boss is a bit crazy. She said if that's what her boss wants to do, she doesn't see any problem. After all, Killa was saved by that girl, so she was probably in love too. So if they keep helping each other, they form an invisible chain and would have a strong bond. However, being punished by the disciplinary committee is a rare event, so she would need to create another occasion to save Zia. There were countless possibilities inside the school for the occasion to arise for her to intervene and save the blonde. The scene changes to the hentai mangaka's room. Bai was describing how our hero should act for the scene to be perfect. Quote unquote, Sia should tilt her head and open her mouth. Then he starts obeying her, asking if it was like that. But he soon realizes it was too embarrassing. With eyes popping with happiness, she said that was perfect. And the guy punches the table. That was too embarrassing and asks who the hell would be happy watching such a ridiculous scene. In case you don't know, girls and tentacles are very popular and sell a lot. But he hadn't come just to be her guinea pig, and asks if there weren't more important things to deal with. The little witch makes a mischievous face and says she doesn't remember anything important to do. So he grabs his stuff and says he's leaving. And she says to wait because she was joking. She had sent a message saying she caught that boy, and that strange things happened. After tying him to a chair, the girl started asking questions, but he acted strangely. The story the boy told didn't match the description of the scene Xiao told. He said he knew very well what he had done, and that he had irritated the girl, but had no idea why he did that. Since he saw Killa on the PE court, it was as if he lost control and couldn't stop thinking about her. Balin thought she would discover some gossip about Killa, but all she did was increase the mystery. And to make things worse, something had happened. That boy said that after he saw the new blonde, he went back to normal. But now he was obsessed with her, the new girl Sia. Our hero already gets chills saying that guy was disgusting. From now on, he would stalk the new girl because she was the love of his life. Balin starts giving details about what that boy said he would do to the blonde, but our hero tells her to be quiet and say nothing else. And holding a serrated knife, he said it was better to deal with that boy. But the little witch said that would be good for her to write in her manga, and our protagonist said if she said one more word he would tell everyone about her mangas. But according to Bai, he couldn't let him go without doing anything, and said it was good Xiao stopped him. That's because it wasn't safe for a guy like that to be free. So she ended up using hypnosis magic to interrogate him. This one always has a trick up her sleeve. The boy comments that her magic looks very suspicious, and the witch replied that the weirder it is, the stronger the effect. The strangest part was that when she hypnotized the boy the first time, the answers were peculiar. He didn't remember anything, much less the reason for his obsession with Killa. And that was strange because hypnosis releases memories even from childhood. Since she couldn't discover anything using hypnosis, it meant some stronger magic made him altered. Our hero interrupts saying he doesn't want to know about that otaku, but about the tentacle curse, and if she had discovered anything. A bit embarrassed, Balin said it was a bit complicated to solve this matter and tries to cover it up. She thinks of some way to solve the situation with magic. Then she ends up banging her foot on the table, pushing the rolling chair to the other side of the room, and our hero doesn't understand anything. Since that boy was enchanted with magic, it meant she wasn't the only magic user at the school. He is surprised because he already imagines what she is trying to say. Xiao's behavior had changed after meeting Killa, so it was likely she was a witch too. Very excited, she starts theorizing that maybe Killa has powers, or some curse just like him. The only thing he can think about is the frightening scene of her saying his name while approaching. It didn't make much sense for that girl to have turned him into a tentacle monster, and he asks why the hell she would do that, especially when it comes to magic. It would make much more sense to suspect the committee leader. The girl gets angry saying now they are allies and can't be doubting each other. However, it was hard to explain that otaku situation without talking about hypnosis magic, and they needed to find out who did that to him. It might really have been Killa, and in the best case, maybe she can't control her own powers. The guy asks if she can't use some magic to identify other marks, and so solve the problem quickly. In a somewhat frightening way, she said there would be more conventional methods, and he should focus on winning the girl. Speaking of which, something strange happened yesterday, and he starts thinking. The little witch approaches him asking what happened, and sweating cold, he said it was nothing. It would be too embarrassing to say he had received lingerie. And that could make this stinky otaku even crazier, and with perverse thoughts. He even imagines the girl drawing a scene like that for her manga, and so he decided he wouldn't say anything and would keep it a secret. Balin said he was a coward, and also a scaredy cat for not being able to say things. But it didn't matter. The plan was working, and if by chance Killa really used magic, it would make the story even more interesting. Teasing the boy, she said, now he has even more reasons to chase that girl, the Ice Queen. And already at school, he said no matter how ridiculous Balin was, she was still right, and he would have to keep an eye on Killa. And regarding the lingerie he received, inside the book, he imagines it was from some secret admirer of that girl. At that moment, he prepares to open the door, thinking of leaving that story behind. It seemed there was some creature on top of the door, and as soon as he entered, the creature fell on his back. He says good morning to Killa, saying she arrived very early. Our protagonist would like to sit next to her, but she brought many books and left them all on top of the desk. The guy feels embarrassed, saying he won't be able to sit next to her, and with blushing cheeks, she said he could sit in the chair in front, so they would be very close. The little blonde agrees and says she would like to clear up some doubts about math. A student said there was a bug on his back. When he turns around, it was a very cute spider. He picks up the arachnid without feeling scared and says it's a gentle little creature. The girl said that was disgusting and asked if Sia wasn't afraid. He realized he was playing the girl's role and that wasn't very consistent with his character. So he runs away and throws the arachnid out the window. And right after, he starts screaming, pretending to be scared and frightened. Someone was approaching our hero, and when he turns around, it was the Ice Queen fixing her clothes, making the mood very romantic. She had blushing cheeks and looked a little nervous. Breathing deeply, she asks if the new girl was okay, and the boy realizes there was a vibe between them. After that, they decide to sit because classes were about to start. But when he sits, he notices the chair was dirty. He didn't know what it was, but his whole outfit stuck to it. It seemed like glue, and he needed to get up so it wouldn't dry. And when he got up, half of his skirt ended up tearing. The guy immediately starts screaming, asking who the hell did that. At that moment, our dear Ice Queen hero goes there to save the new girl. She takes off her coat and ends up covering her so no part was exposed. And right after, she lifts the little blonde. With the new girl in her arms, she said she would take her to the infirmary. And the other students kept saying that scene was very cool. Very embarrassed, he said she didn't need to do that, but Killa insisted it was necessary. Right after, they arrive there, and the room was empty. The girl closes the door while Zia wonders what strange situation this was. Besides closing the door, the girl also locked it, and even checked to see if no one would be able to open it from outside. Sweating cold, our protagonist asks if that was really necessary, and with a, let's say, loving look, she starts flirting with the new girl. She was unbuttoning her clothes, and our protagonist asks why she was doing that. He had no idea why all this was happening, and with an embarrassed face, she was holding a piece of clothing. The guy was trying his best not to look because that would summon his tentacles, and he still kept asking why the hell she had taken off that piece of clothing, and even said she didn't need to do that. But the Ice Queen didn't answer anything. After approaching the new girl, she said she did that to help her. If by chance someone saw her like that, they would make fun of her, so she decided to lend her clothes. But in that case, the Ice Queen herself would be left without that piece of clothing, and they would make fun of her. It seems the girl hadn't thought about that and got a little confused, so she ends up answering that it wasn't important. She was a simple, hopeless romantic. He couldn't believe this was really happening, and it seemed like she had a crush on him. Everything now was making sense. She had put that insect in the classroom. Then she had brought many books to avoid sitting next to him, and finally glued the pants to the chair to rescue her. All that was tactics to be together in the infirmary, and now, in a cute way, she was there offering her skirt for her to wear. Our protagonist refuses, saying it's not necessary, and then he starts yelling, asking if all this hadn't already been planned by her. I think it would be better if you worried about yourself first, Killa. You can't be without the uniform. He was supposed to be chasing that girl, not the other way around. She had brought another piece of clothing but was happy the new girl was worried about her, and still mentions that this little blonde is different from all the other girls, and that was what made her feel attracted. This little blonde was brave and kind. Approaching our hero, she said the new girl's situation was even more important. She should, according to her driver, become indispensable in the life of the person she liked. That's why she was taking the initiative to get closer to the new girl. That way, they get very close to each other, and our protagonist ends up losing balance, and so falls completely on a stretcher in the infirmary. That was the perfect scene for the Ice Queen to pounce and tell the little blonde not to be embarrassed. She breathed deeply while approaching, and the only thing the guy thought was why this had to happen. He even tried to warn her she was acting strangely, but Killa was crazy, and said she felt completely normal while advancing on him. The girl said she couldn't understand, but there was a smell on our protagonist that made her unable to resist, and she asks what kind of perfume Sia was wearing because it was very fragrant. Right after, she said she would help her put on the piece of clothing, and that already made the boy start freaking out because there was a risk the tentacles would appear. Even holding himself back, It was very difficult because she was very close. It seemed like his body was going to explode while telling the girl to get off him. Kind of by accident, the guy ends up touching the girl's hand, and because of that, he starts screaming. After a few seconds, he gave up resisting and started taking action. The girl feels something strange that you all know very well what it is, and even gets scared asking what that was. Killa thought it was a fruit she didn't like. The place was kind of dark and she couldn't see well, and with dirty hands she asked what the hell that was. She even got scared thinking she had touched something she didn't like, but it wasn't at all what you were thinking. She had grabbed one of our hero's tentacles. He used his tentacles to hold the girl, but instead of finding it bad or weird, she started asking what it was, and even screamed very excitedly asking why he had tentacles. She asks where he was putting those tentacles. Now that she had seen his curse, there was no way for him to explain. With his head down, he said that meant one thing. Right after, she grabs one of his tentacles, and with a very excited face, she said she wanted to try the most special side of Xia Zheng. I tell you, these mangas are bizarre. I swear I didn't know about scenes like this when I started writing the script. Not even our protagonist believed this was true. And the girl keeps going crazy saying she wants to try all the sides of Xia Zheng. He imagined that this girl would find it strange, but the opposite was happening. He asks if she isn't afraid because he doesn't look human. The girl said they would see who was less human between the two. And the guy is already shocked, saying she didn't understand what he meant. Breathing deeply, he realized it was impossible to hold back this girl, and it even seemed like his tentacles had some charm effects, and his eyes start getting hypnotized when looking at Killa. So he ends up pushing the girl, telling her to get off him. But she stuck more than a tick and said she wouldn't let go, and still asks where the new girl thinks she was running away to, and says the little blonde looks even cuter when she's mischievous trying to escape. Totally cornered, he asks for help while Killa says she will devour the little blonde, and that's exactly what she intended to do. Oh no, man. Some things don't even surprise me anymore. He screams at her not to do that, and ends up putting himself in front, kissing that crazy girl. Now it was she who was embarrassed, asking what the new girl was doing. He realizes he also couldn't hold himself, and it was like being hypnotized, and the crazy girl goes there and tries to kiss again. That made her extremely happy, and even started to have red juice coming out of her nose. You know very well what that means. And right after she faints on the other side, her body trembling. The guy is in shock, not knowing what had just happened. Right after, he heard a noise under the bed, and who was there? Was the little witch with a mischievous face. Our protagonist asks what she was doing hiding there all that time, and she answers that she had teleported with magic. The purpose was to observe all the scenes to be able to make her drawings. That's why she did it. Besides, the noise in the hallway was attracting a lot of attention, and it was impossible for someone not to hear it. Then he said he was surprised because he didn't know this bizarre side of Killa. On the other hand, the little witch was excited, saying she didn't know this wonderful side of her. And the best part is that it would make great material for her manga and could save her story in the magazine. The guy was sad because he was totally paralyzed like an idiot and didn't think she was like that. Balin answers that it's normal for some people to like octopuses, and Ars said that's not what he was talking about. But they should worry now about this secret that could spread to the whole school, but the witch said she would solve it with magic. Pay attention to this scene. She lifts her skirt, and right after pulls out a baseball bat, saying she will erase the Ice Queen's memories. The guy asks how she hides that inside her clothes, but she gives an excuse saying it's with magic. I don't know if I believe her. The guy says he's already seen too many bizarre things for today and doesn't want to know anything else, while the witch said it's necessary to erase the girl's memories. He wasn't really believing that this baseball bat could erase memories, so the witch explains how things work. Magical items are created according to what they seem to do. Many people believe a baseball bat can affect memory, but people don't believe a teddy bear could do that. So wizards simply put a spell on items according to their functions. An example of this is hypnosis apps on the phone. Since many people believe in that, she put a spell on her phone to really hypnotize. And basically anything counts, even summoning spells like she did and printing on paper. The guy says she's very talented and creative and is surprised she's really human. That way, she says she will use the memory erasing magic so he can see that it really works. After touching the baseball bat to Killa's head, the girl says she will forget completely everything that happened. Our protagonist asks if there are no problems, and the witch said she erased all traces unless Killa is also a witch, then it wouldn't work. The guy starts to get tense, thinking his secret was discovered. Right after, the witch says she will leave so he can solve the rest alone, and still gives a last warning telling our hero to try not to kill anyone. And she says it seriously, as if he could really be capable of that. A few seconds later, the girl wakes up. But the tentacles hadn't gone away yet, which means he was still excited. He even gets scared, saying she woke up too fast. And it seemed like he had gone back to square one. Killa ends up waking up feeling confused. At that moment, she realizes she was lying on the bed and tries to understand what had happened. Suddenly, she hears a noise and looks to the side. Our protagonist says that she had finally woken up and asks if she was okay. He also says that the girl had fainted after being taken to the infirmary. Playing with her hair, Killa couldn't remember anything. Holding her coat, she asks, worried about Zia, about her skirt that had ripped. Our hero says he found a new outfit in the closet and that it was a coincidence. But the girl didn't quite believe that and was still trying to remember what had happened. At that moment, Xiao places his hand on the girl's shoulder. He says that she probably just wasn't feeling well and should go home and rest. But everything was very strange, since she had planned everything, and the fainting was totally unexpected. She only remembered that she was very happy, and maybe that's why she ended up losing consciousness. She had spent the whole night planning that scene where she would take Zia to the infirmary and be alone with her. After getting in the car, the girl keeps thinking about what went wrong, and even says she was really dumb for fainting. Her driver gets worried because Miss Killa looked like she was sick. Since she had stopped by the market, she decides to give her lady some fruit to eat. She hands her a banana, saying she needed to eat because she looked bad. When she sees that fruit, she immediately thinks about our hero. No need to say what she was thinking about. She says the texture of the fruit felt familiar, since she had touched those octopus tentacles. As she didn't remember that, she was trying her best to regain her memory. She keeps saying the sensation was very familiar, and it felt like she had eaten a fruit like that a few hours ago. At that moment, she feels an enormous hunger. She was about to eat the fruit with the peel on, but her driver says it's not safe to eat the banana peel, and she should peel it first. At that moment, she realizes her lady was very distracted and asks if something happened at school. A bit shy, Killa admits that yes, something did happen. She couldn't stop thinking about Xiaozheng and kept wondering why she thought of him now. The most impressive part is that she couldn't stop thinking about that girl. Because of that, she ends up asking her driver to investigate the address of a certain person. It was a student from her class named Xiaozheng. The driver gets surprised, since it was a boy's name, and even wonders if her young lady was in love. She says there's no problem investigating, since she's very good at that. Later, the scene shifts to our hero's house. Balin had gone there to draw some expressions, and the guy was lying on the bed serving as a model for the manga. He gets mad, saying those scenes are too embarrassing. He even asks who would want to see that, and the worst part is that the witch didn't leave him alone even at night. She says she was overflowing with inspiration because of what happened in the infirmary. Our hero's only concern was whether that girl had really lost her memory. He even tells Balin to make sure to go back and erase her memory again, but the little witch says that wasn't possible. That power of hers was drained and couldn't be used again for a while. So, basically, they had to trust the spell had worked that time. Xiao gets mad and asks why she didn't say that earlier, since there was a big chance the spell didn't work. But the little witch mocks him, saying she didn't say anything because he didn't ask. Besides, she could use magic again in 3 days, but our protagonist says that's too long. When the waiting period is over, she'll create a really powerful magic circle to erase all the girl's memories, so she won't keep chasing our hero. However, that was going to take a long time, and our protagonist ends up accepting, not having many options. He even says that in 3 days, she's to completely erase Killa's memory, so she forgets about him for good. But the little witch wasn't too into that idea, since it was giving her tons of inspiration for her manga, and she still needed to reach peak emotion. Our hero understood exactly what she meant by that. At that moment, someone knocks at the door. Our hero asks if the witch had ordered food, and she says no. So it was really strange for someone to be knocking on the door at that hour. He goes to the door and opens it, asking who it was, and in that moment, he realizes something terrifying. Standing there, with a creepy face, was Killa. Our hero gets super scared. He ends up slamming the door shut, terrified. He even blocks it with his body, wondering if that was a hallucination or illusion. The little witch, on the other hand, asks if the peak emotion was about to happen. At the same time, Xiao wonders how she found his house, and thinks maybe she followed him by car after school. But it was really rude to leave the door shut in her face, so he decides to open it again to see if it was an illusion or not. And there she was, pretending to be all well-behaved. She didn't even seem like the same Killa. She speaks in a soft, sweet voice, asking if it was him. The guy plays it off, saying he was scared, or rather, surprised she had knocked on his door, and the girl tries to play it cool, looking around. Then she says she was passing through the area and, after buying some tools, decided to come to his house. Twirling her hair, she asks if it was too sudden. However, he could only think about what that sudden visit meant. At that very moment, the little witch uses a voice spell and perfectly mimics our hero's voice, telling Killa to come in. The guy gets super scared. He even looks back to see what that shameless girl had done, but she wasn't there anymore. She had hidden. Since the girl was invited to come in, she takes off her shoes. He pretends to leave them in the corner, and he also puts on a friendly face so as not to seem suspicious. While he thinks about what to do, he says he's going to get something to drink. Coincidentally, the power goes out, and they're left in the dark. The guy already realizes that this was the work of that little witch. In the middle of the darkness, he starts to feel a strange energy behind him. Killa holds his hand and tells him not to leave her side because she's afraid of the dark. She keeps making that excuse that she just stopped by to say hello, but that she couldn't help herself. Making a kind of scary face, she says that she can't control herself when she's near Xia Zheng. At that moment, he realizes that his leg is tied, and he already wonders who did it. Soon after, he is pushed to the ground and falls hard. His arms were also tied. This crazy woman says she prepared some tools so the blonde wouldn't run away. Soon after, she takes out a box cutter and pushes the blade forward. The poor guy is paralyzed, understanding that she really went to the store just to buy those ropes. He even tries to run away, but she keeps telling him to calm down, that she won't hurt him, and she even makes a crazy face, telling Xia not to be afraid of her. She reveals that whenever she is alone with Xia, she can't control herself. It's as if something is missing inside her. She feels a huge void and needs Xia to fill it. Once again, she makes that crazy face and says that she can't stop thinking about our hero. Panic has already taken over the boy, who only thinks about how to get rid of that. With the knife in hand, Killa says that those tied legs are not convenient, so she decides to cut the rope. Our hero realizes that his legs are now free, and he thinks that this is the perfect chance to escape. He tries to do a back somersault, but he fails miserably and hits his head hard on the bed. He even tells himself that he's going to start working out, because he's a real wimp. Killa takes advantage of this opportunity to corner him, and he even says that he's starting to love Xia just like that. The little witch was hiding under the bed and thinking everything was perfect for her manga. Since our hero was lying on the floor, he managed to see his friend hiding. She had her hand over her mouth, holding herself back from screaming with happiness. It would be great for the manga to show a crazy girl breaking into a room at night, tying up the person she likes, and confessing all her love. But the poor guy could only make an expression asking for help. But the little witch was cruel and wanted to see the scene unfold. She even gives an evil smile, because this scene would be a hit in her story. And the boy thinks that this is the last time he will do a favor like that. Meanwhile, Killa asks where he is looking, and tells him that he should focus his eyes on her, places the cold blade on his cheek, and says that their eyes have to meet. The guy was feeling super pressured by the balloons, and starts making up an excuse that it is late at night and they can't make any noise. Killa tells the blonde not to call her Killa, but rather, my love, or rather, my darling. Making a crazy face, she says that at school she couldn't express all her feelings because she was shy. But when they were alone, she could say that she loved her. But there she wasn't shy at all. She said she would taste Xia completely. Meanwhile, our hero gets furious, saying that there's nothing shy about her. And when he tries to tell her to calm down, she puts her hand over his mouth. She says that they should talk less and act more. Then she starts taking off a piece of clothing, and says that it's going to be a punishment, because Xia was very naughty. The guy wonders what that is in her hand, and realizes that it looks like the gift he gave her. At that moment, Killa puts a cloth in his mouth, saying that it's so that he doesn't squirm and accepts his fate. The guy was completely helpless, while she told him to feel her love. This was already leaving the poor guy breathless. She even says that he's going to choke to death, but Killa doesn't care, and goes on the attack. His clothes are ripped to shreds. He even feels relieved that he's still wearing his costume, because if she found out he was a man, she would kill him. But it was no time to feel relieved. He was still at great risk. With the blade in her hand, Killa mentions that Xia's body is very hot. The guy becomes desperate, afraid that his disguise will be discovered, even more so with the place her hand was reaching. If she discovered everything, he would be screwed. All he could think about was the consequences. But then, at that moment, a noise comes. It was the little witch, super excited under the bed, saying that this scene will be perfect in the manga. She wanted Killa to be even more extreme to make good pages, but she was making too much noise celebrating down there. She couldn't even control herself, saying that she needed to get the tablet to draw everything live. The noise was too loud. Killa heard everything. She says that there is a little mouse hidden under the bed, and that she needed to find out who it was. She puts her hand on the bed and lifts everything. The girl was very strong, and manages to throw the bed away, revealing who was there. The leader of the disciplinary committee was hiding. Our hero starts screaming in despair, not knowing what that crazy woman would do now. With the blade in her hands, she says that the disciplinary representative was a very smart little mouse, and she wants to know what she was doing in the house of the love of her life. The protagonist screams, saying that he is no one's love of life, and that the little witch appeared at the worst possible time. He looks at Balin's face, and knows that she had accidentally let herself be caught. She wasn't trying to save him. Killa throws the blade near the little witch, who manages to dodge it. Then, she picks up the blade again and asks her darling what that bitch was doing there. She wants to know if they're plotting something against her. The poor guy just shakes his head, desperate, saying that he's not plotting anything. But it didn't matter. According to Killa, that little rat wasn't going to be seen again. Balin, crying a lot, gets tense, waiting for what's going to happen.
Killa said that what the girl was saying didn't matter. That's because today was her end. Since Balin was very smart, she said it was nothing but a misunderstanding. In fact, she and Xiazeng were cousins and had always been very close, and since the blonde girl had just moved, she went there to visit her, and after hugging our hero, she kept comparing their looks, saying they were very similar. But of course, Killa wasn't going to fall for such talk, and she kept asking why Balin was hiding under the bed. In fact, Xia was nervous because someone very important was knocking at the door. That's why the blonde girl asked her cousin to hide under the bed so Killa wouldn't know another girl was in her house. Hearing that lame excuse, Killa seems to believe it. Seriously, does she think I'm someone important? Killa keeps saying there, and our hero keeps whispering to his friend not to tell those depraved lies. And instead of telling the truth, the little witch keeps stirring things up, saying even she was embarrassed since the romance between the two was very intense. And she even says she wholeheartedly supports the romance of the two girls, especially since they were destined to be together. Look at this shameless girl, guys. It's really to mess with our protagonist. Hearing all those words, Killa goes crazy thinking they really were a perfect pair, and the only thing our big guy thinks is that he's screwed and even starts to accept his end. Putting her hand on her face, Killa says she already understood everything and that she's very shy now, and because she's feeling so embarrassed, she runs off, saying she'll come back another day, and when she comes back they'll finish what they started. And just by looking at that girl's face, you can already imagine what she wants to do, and as she leaves, she slams the door. Giving a relieved sigh, he thinks today was not the day of his death. Balin keeps saying that if Killa had stayed even one more second, she would have lost control. While tied up, our big guy asks, "Please let me go." But Balin doesn't give much importance and rubs her melons in his face. In fact, she was trying to grab something and the boy was controlling himself as much as possible so his tentacles wouldn't appear. She was rummaging through her closet, took out a clipboard with a sheet and started sketching. All those scenes she saw would make great manga scenes. And Balin even starts imagining the romance she's going to describe. And we already see the scenes are quite hot. Later, our hero ends up being freed and he gets angry, smashing the glass on the floor. He didn't imagine that the deal he made with Balin would be so dangerous. But the little witch keeps saying it's not her fault since she has a weapon in her hand. Since she was a witch and Killa a warrior, she would be at a disadvantage in a one-on-one fight. But our protagonist doesn't believe that lame talk. He knew very well that Balin was forcing Killa to do those things only to give her inspiration. But since Killa managed to lift the bed with one hand, our hero gets terrified, saying she is very dangerous, and not caring much about the danger. Balin keeps saying it was obvious since Killa was a warrior or knight, and the boy gets mad complaining, saying she only thinks about that kind of thing. Handing him a cell phone, Balin explains that she will give him a secret weapon and even jokes that she secretly took his phone and checked his history. What do you think our protagonist has been searching for, huh? She had installed in his device a hypnosis app so he could defend himself from Killa. When in trouble, all he had to do was use the app and show it to the girl. Seriously, does magic work in cell phone apps? The little witch said yes, and our hero keeps telling her to stop explaining since he already understood, and to test it he grabs the device and shows it to her. At that moment the little witch gets hypnotized. She even starts calling him an idiot, but stops right away since she was tamed by an illusion. To see if it had really worked, our protagonist starts giving some orders and decides to ask for something Balin would never accept. He told her to take off her coat and the girl actually started doing it. That's when the big guy realized the app worked and even got nervous, since there would be many possibilities if you know what I mean. But trying to control himself, he said he already understood and told her to stop. At that moment the girl woke up and asked what they were doing since she was feeling strange. Trying to play it off, the big guy said the girl was going to clean the house and then draw some more sketches. Since it was already late, she would come back the next day so they could make those drawings. In fact, she wanted to run away to draw those naughty things she had just witnessed, and so she ran off. However, when she reached the hallway, she noticed something strange. That's because the electrical part of Shao's house had a strange magic, so we see it wasn't Balin who turned off the lights. The next day, our protagonist was at school terrified, since there were only 3 days left until Killa's memory loss would be applied. He sat as far as possible from the girl, practically on the other side of the room, but the poor girl was thoughtful. Why was Shao keeping his distance? I admit to you guys that at first I thought this Killa was really crazy, but now I'm already liking her. Guys, comment below if you also like this character. The big guy was doing everything to keep his distance. After seeing she was so powerful and crazy, it was better to stay away. Jay's classmate asks why he had that worried face, so he gives an excuse, saying he was feeling stomach pain and even asks if he could rest during P. Class. He couldn't practice any sport, otherwise his grafts would end up escaping. The girl says that if he wasn't going to stay in the infirmary, he would have to attend P. Class, and they could even do something else. That's because the PE teacher was very chill and didn't force anyone to play sports. So the big guy goes to the court, and when he gets there, he sees the teacher almost dying of laziness. He got scared since the PE teacher was also the math teacher, and she, all tired, said that actually she was like that because she had been working too much. She was so careless she even scratched parts of her body in front of the boys. Our hero keeps thinking that adult life is really very hard. But of course the teacher wasn't going to spend the whole day idle and said that, to spice things up, she would make a competitive basketball game between the boys. Blowing the whistle, she gathers all the kids and the guys show up beside her. They keep complaining, saying they wanted to play shuttlecock, and another saying he wanted to finish knitting. Furious, the teacher said that's why these boys nowadays can't get girlfriends. And mocking the teacher, one guy says she's the one who already had 36 blind dates. Shouting, she orders him to run 37 laps around the court. But thinking about it, she had something to motivate the players a little. Hugging Shia, she keeps telling the boys to play basketball. That's because this pretty girl was watching them, and the guys should impress her. The big guy realized she was being made into a trophy. And nothing motivates boys more than women watching them play sports. They even look like JoJo characters saying they're going to win. All of that just to get a date with the blonde girl. The poor hero hadn't even agreed to this, and there they were, the boys struggling to try to impress her. They even give their best, and he gets excited saying it looks like a shonen battle, but after that they're all exhausted. The match ended 0-0 since they were really bad, and looking toward the girls' side, she all gets worried, since Keela hadn't shown up. The teacher ends up throwing the ball to our hero and tells him to return it inside the gym. What made him even more worried was the fact that Keela hadn't shown up. It was as if she were planning something against him. Looking to the back of the court, he noticed something had fallen. At that moment, the door closes and someone locks it. And we see it was our dear Keela. The big guy turns around totally startled, and she was worried, asking why he had been ignoring her all this time. The guy feels a bit awkward, and she thought it was because of what happened last night. The poor thing, guys, she even starts crying, asking if she had done something wrong. That moment really broke the heart. But the guy starts feeling guilty and asks her to listen to him first. Grabbing Shiel's hands, she said she knew everything. She knew very well that the blonde girl was only feeling embarrassed because of what happened last night. But our hero keeps saying it wasn't like that. The crazy girl thought Shia was embarrassed, that's why she was avoiding her. In gripping his hand tightly, she pulls him closer, saying that if the blonde girl was playing hard to get, she didn't have to. The guy already started turning into an octopus, and his tentacles began to appear. The girl gets all excited, saying she likes those cute tentacles. And she even gets curious, saying it's interesting to know Shia's true self. Wait a second. Does she remember my tentacles? We didn't erase her memory. Grabbing his phone, he decides to call Balin for help, but the messages weren't going through. The scene flashes back a few hours earlier in the library. He was talking with the girl, asking if she had improved that phone app. She said yes, but maybe it wouldn't work on Keela. Besides, she had discovered something about the girl. Shiel gets curious, asking what Balin had found out, but he thought it was just a joke from the little witch and leaves, saying she's useless. Shouting in the library, she said that blackout at the breaker wasn't caused by her, but by Keela. At that instant, he already turns around, asking what had happened. He was thinking it was just Balin stirring trouble between them, but the girl keeps saying no. And making a sulky face, she said she wasn't the one who turned off the lights. And she even imagines it was Keela, and that moreover magic was used. That leaves our protagonist even more discouraged, imagining that crazy girl knows how to use powers. It was strange for a rich, cold girl who hated men to act like that. But Balin had a theory about why she was so weird. Her theory was that she liked women. That's why she acted that way, especially since there were rumors at school that Keela really liked girls. But what Balin discovered is that Keela didn't hate men, but was actually afraid of them. All of this was because of the boys who kept confessing to her. That explained the growing fear she had of men. The big guy remembers very well that guy who showed up some time ago confessing to the girl. And although she had the reputation of being a lesbian, no one knew of her ever being with another girl. He even imagines that Keela used the same strategy as our hero when he said back at the start that he liked naughty girls. That was only to push people away. But there was something that didn't make sense. Why didn't she use her money and family influence to drive men away, and why had she clung so strongly to our hero? Balin says that's exactly what they needed to find out. He imagines that the tentacle curse is tied to this girl. So she had a plan. First, our hero was supposed to completely ignore Keela, and we see that's what he did the entire day. That would make her even more agitated. And then he should go to the gym where no one was around, and from there they would force her into an illusion. The scene jumps back to the present, and we see that our hero was cornered. He even tries to call Balin for help, but the messages weren't going through. It seems the phone had suffered magical interference. And complaining, he says this crappy device fails at the worst time. When he looks to the side, he notices Keela was doing something quite peculiar. That scene was far more intense than he could have imagined. And sorry guys, I had to put little bubbles covering it. Our hero's nose even starts bleeding. And you already know why. She asked what was so interesting on his phone that it was more important than her. And whispering into his ear, she says they should begin. Wait a second, girl. Begin what? Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. She says it was to begin the act of devouring him and already grabs his hand. The big guy can't hold himself and stays there with his nose dripping. However, he couldn't fall into temptation and pulls out his tentacles, asking who this girl thinks she is. How could she look at those horrid tentacles and not even feel afraid? But Killa keeps saying it was our hero who made a move on her first. He knew that very well since he approached her for his own reasons. But this obsession of hers with tentacles was getting really strange, especially since it wasn't normal for a girl to see monstrous tentacles and feel so attracted. The poor girl just keeps listening to this lecture, guys. But she gives a little laugh, saying he hasn't seen her true self. The girl touches our protagonist's face and he keeps trying to understand what she was doing. This was the moment for her to show her true identity, and she already starts transforming into a succubus. Yeah guys, I saw some of you commented in the previous video that you suspected she was a succubus, and whoever commented that was right. She said neither of them was human, and even gives a wink, throwing a little charm at him. I bet our big guy wasn't expecting that. He didn't know if that was some kind of magic or if she was a sorceress, but the only thing he was sure of was that if the girl found out he was a man, he'd be screwed. She gets closer, saying that the two of them weren't from this world and that she was happy to be able to show him her true love. As she approaches, she prepares a kiss, but our boy was determined to defend himself, so he wouldn't let the girl touch his lips. Pressing him against the wall, Killa says the blonde girl had no way to escape anymore. I bet he was taking too long to use the hypnosis just because he was enjoying those scenes. But touching the phone, he opens the app and shows the hypnosis screen, aiming to dominate the girl. She looks at it, even thinks it's strange, but gives a slight laugh and asks if by chance that charming blonde was trying to hypnotize her, and she even said she was very naughty, asking if she wanted to hypnotize her to do spicy things, and that if it was because of that, hypnosis wouldn't even be needed, especially since that sort of thing didn't work on her, as she was the best at it. The big guy asks if she had hypnotized him and even remembers that time when that thing touched his leg and he felt something strange. Giving an excuse, the girl said that was an accident. She didn't mean to hypnotize our hero, and blowing into his ear, said that was good since they had an intimate connection. All pressed against the wall, he keeps saying she was misunderstanding. What's the point of using illusions if we can do things in the real world, she keeps saying. And she already plants a big kiss on our protagonist. He feels his energy being drained, but surprisingly he was enjoying it. It even felt very relaxing. Even his tentacles start to shrink in size. And the guy with tears in his eyes asks what the hell was that? He was seeing some visions from Killa's past and saw she had some friends. However, the boys wouldn't stop bothering her, and she started feeling afraid of them and even doing everything to scare them away. The girl's eyes were full of fear, and the boys chased her while she did everything so they wouldn't confess to her. She even hid in the bathroom and started crying from fear of the boys. She thought all of that was happening because of her fault. And then our hero appeared in the girl's life. Through that kiss, he saw that this girl suffered a lot, and coming out of the illusion, he was still having his strength drained. He grabs his phone and tries to call Balin, and notices that there was a call ringing on his phone. It was exactly the little witch. He manages to answer, and the girl was there cursing a lot, asking what the hell he was doing locked up with the other one. However, she could only hear some kissing noises, especially since inside the scene was quite romantic. A bit angry, she asks who was the one who raised that magic barrier around the gym. And putting the phone to his ear, she realizes our hero wasn't answering her questions, especially since he was very busy at that moment. The kiss had already been lasting for long minutes, and he starts typing asking for help. But strangely enough, Balin was not able to get through the door, and what had been a good feeling started to become something scary. He was about to lose consciousness, but a portal appears at his side, and who comes out of it is precisely the little witch ready to save him. And she had even brought with her a magic seal, and ends up touching the head of that succubus. She immediately stops kissing and feels that there is something wrong there. The seal ends up imprisoning the evil personality, and catching his breath, our prota said he almost died suffocated. Noticing the scene, Balin finds that very curious. She did not suspect that Killa's original form was a succubus. That was why she did not find it so strange that our hero had tentacles. But it was too much of a coincidence. It was very rare for a demon to enter people's bodies, even more so two demons in the bodies of two students from the same school. And she even keeps saying this is going to be very good for her manga. Succubus versus tentacle monster. And ours gets mad, saying it was not for her to think of that kind of thing in a situation like this. But it seemed that Killa and that succubus were two separate entities. It was not like in the case of our hero who ended up with those octopus tentacles on his back. But since the girl was passed out, there was no way to ask her about that now. And looking at the magic seal, he saw that the girl was draining energy, and since she seemed to be quite powerful, she would regain consciousness very quickly. But our hero wanted to know why she was like that. That was beyond the witch's knowledge, who said she did not have enough magic to suppress the succubus's power. At that instant, she receives a call from her mother and already gets worried. At that moment, our hero saw that there was one person in this world who could make Balin feel fear. And answering the phone, the girl keeps saying she did not use magic the wrong way. She was giving explanations to her mother. After hanging up the phone, Our big guy keeps asking who it was on the call, if it was her mother, if by any chance she could help, and hearing that, the little witch gets worried and said that if by any chance he told her mother about the tentacles, he would become a guinea pig. Ah, okay, then forget it, I won't ask again. But there was something that had caught the girl's attention. Cheosol's octopus tentacles were smaller and even cute. She asked when they had become like that, and he said it was after Keela kissed his mouth. Because of that, Balin already suspected something, and asked the boy to open his mouth. She already goes putting her hand on his tongue trying to collect magical fluids, and she even keeps saying that succubus leave magical residues in people. In other words, there was plenty of magical fluid inside our hero's body, and that was why his tentacles were small, since the succubus was draining all his power. Right after, she keeps wiping her dirty hand on our hero's clothes, saying that was very disgusting. But now everything made sense. Since she was a succubus, she fed on magic. That's why she was so into our hero, and she ended up sucking him until he was dry. And since she had a full tummy, she did not suck the magic that was contained in that seal. And she even keeps saying that our hero's octopus magic ended up activating the succubus's desires. Quite worried, he asks if there is a way to reverse her transformation, but the girl says no. First, they would need to discover the cause of that transformation. The guy is already shocked, imagining that all the effort he made was in vain. But Balin says no, because at least now they know she is a succubus, and that to erase her memory, they will need to do a much greater and far more complex spell. But since he saw that the girl was suffering, our hero wanted to help her. And with a little chuckle, that pest Balin said there was another option. And just by looking at her face, we already know she's thinking nonsense. She said it was just like those classic stories where a girl cannot touch anyone, and when she finds someone she can touch, she becomes extremely in love. The little witch was saying that was exactly what happened between Che and Keela. So it didn't matter what our hero did, even when he turned back into a man, she would still be in love. And our big guy keeps imagining Keela in that magnificent form, which makes us suspect he is really feeling in love with her. And holding our hero's hand, she keeps proposing some ideas, but our big guy ends up just giving a thumbs up. Our hero says that Keela acts that way because she is hungry for magic and not because she feels true love for him. That's why it was alright to erase her memory, since the girl doesn't even love him the way he's imagining. Is it really, guys? Does Keela like our protagonist only because she is a succubus and feels attracted to the tentacle magic? Or does she really like him? Comment down here what you think. The girl ends up waking up and, upon opening her eyes, realizes she was in the car. She asks where she was, and the driver is surprised that she had woken up. She says that her classmates brought her to the car, saying she had fainted in physical education. The driver seemed a bit clumsy, guys, and was driving making very sharp turns. But the only thing Keela wanted to know was if it had been Shia who brought her. The driver didn't really know who it was, and only said it was better for the girl to go to the hospital. A little sad, Keela says she doesn't want to go to the hospital, but rather go home to rest. The girl goes straight to the bath and was trying to understand what had happened. Every time she met Shia, she ended up losing her memory and couldn't remember anything that had happened between them. Since last night, Shia had been avoiding contact with her, and poor Keela kept trying to understand what she had done wrong. She even imagined she had done something that ruined everything. At that instant, the phone starts ringing, and it was a message from Shia apologizing for what had happened. She was asking if by chance the girl was free tomorrow, and even sent another message saying she would like to have a date with her. Reading that message, the girl gets all happy, guys, and if you think Keela is cute, comment down below. And then finally the day of the date arrives. Our hero was a little worried. He only needed to stay within the park limits to remain safe. He needed to remember something very simple: stay in places where there were many people, so that Keela wouldn't come at him. Balin was using a kind of earring with an earphone to contact our hero and was still hiding, watching him around the park. She wanted to take advantage of this whole opportunity to make that giant seal and completely erase Keela's memory. This was the third day he had been waiting for since the power of our little witch had recovered. But we know she didn't really want to do that since it was giving her lots of scenes for her manga. After having drawn several shocking scenes, she would erase Keela's memory so she wouldn't remember anything. And with a mischievous little face, she keeps saying to our hero that she would draw one last scene. So he was supposed to do very well today. While he was there all worried, Keela appears in the back. She calls his name and, breathless, apologizes for being late. We see that she was wearing very different clothes. She said the traffic was horrible and apologizes for having made our dear Shia wait. But the big guy tells the girl to relax because he had just arrived at the place. Since neither of them had experience with dates, the mood got quite awkward, and since no one said anything, that was very embarrassing. Balin, who is watching everything, even gets mad, telling the boy to say something. She whispers in our hero's ear that he should compliment her outfit, and he ends up doing that, saying her makeup and clothes looked great. The girl says she spent a long time choosing her clothes and that she wasn't even wearing makeup. It was the worst compliment possible. Not even Balin, who is an otaku nerd, imagined our hero would be that bad, and holding Keela's hands, he drags her away, saying he's going to bring something tasty to eat. But the crazy girl said she had spent the whole night researching the best attractions, roller coaster, freefall tower, and also the bathroom, Wait a minute, did she say bathroom? Did I hear that right? Trying to cover it up, our little blonde keeps saying they should look for the closest ride. It couldn't be an isolated place, otherwise the girl would come at him. So he has the brilliant idea of going to the haunted house. I don't know where he got that this place would be crowded, but alright. In his mind, that place would be packed. But Keela didn't seem very comfortable and ends up holding him by the clothes. The girl said he wasn't supposed to call her by her surname, but he could call her Keela since he was using her surname. Our big guy is a little shocked, but then gives a little chuckle. Holding the girl's hands, he says it's alright and already drags her into the haunted house. But when he gets there, he gets a little scared. The first monster of the show was a giant octopus, but those tentacles were very fragile, and it seems Keela had liked it. Guys, the big guy even gives a chuckle, saying that the park staff didn't even know what real tentacles were like. But strangely enough, Keela had liked it and even grabbed her phone to take a picture. And with blushed cheeks, she keeps saying those people were very cute. But our big guy wasn't really believing that. It was strange for someone to actually like tentacles. At that exact moment, someone touches his hand and asks for permission, saying they would like some help. The guy already finds it strange, imagining someone was trying to touch his butt. And looking back, he sees a child with a scary look. If I saw a child like that, I'd already kick right away. But our big guy got scared to death and ran away. Then he realized it was just an ordinary child, and that fear made him see the kid that way. Keela asks if by chance he is afraid of those things, and the big guy gets another scare. Trying to cover it up, he says he wasn't scared, just finding it strange for those things to appear in front of him. He ends up getting another scare and bumps into the girl, and as always ends up falling on top of her. The poor thing says she's fine and didn't get hurt, but our big guy was having a strange feeling on his back. When he turns, he realizes it was Keela's balloons. She gets embarrassed and said it's because she left home without wearing underwear. That's why they had that texture, if you know what I mean. At that moment, the door ends up closing and dear Xia realizes he fell into Keela's trap. She whispers in his ear, saying it's much better to leave home without underwear. And trying to seduce our big guy, she asks if by chance he doesn't want to take a look. I don't know if our protagonist is the luckiest or the unluckiest guy in the world, guys. At the door of that room where they entered, it said that it was a special room for kisses. In other words, there was a room in that haunted house meant for couples. Trying to talk to Balin through the earpiece, he asks what that meant. But Keela thought he was talking to her and said that it meant they would have a moment alone. Now it was only her and him. She even starts biting his ear and the big guy is already starting to scream. He can't hold it back. Then his tentacles end up slipping out from his back. And unbelievably, he is not able to control himself. And the tentacles are appearing very quickly. I think it's because he is falling in love with her. I don't know, huh? The girl keeps making a little joke, asking what that was poking her underneath. And she even says she was very happy because those tentacles seemed to like her. Now they would finish what they started last time. Our big guy starts saying that he doesn't want this to happen, but as he puts his hand on another area, she says that doesn't seem like tentacles. Yeah guys, she was putting her hand right there. Outside we see that the people dressed as ghosts were in some sort of illusion, and Keela starts revealing her succubus identity. In a passionate way, she said that this time Xia would not escape. A woman appears asking what those noises were, and the big girl casts a spell on her, making her fall into some kind of hypnosis. That spell ends up being cast on the other workers and makes them back off so they won't interfere with her fun. But it seems the succubus's charm ends up affecting the women's desires and they already start running after our hero. At that moment, I bet not even Wi-Fi could pass through our protagonist. There were thousands of women dressed as ghosts running after him, and even saying he was a little coconut candy. Through the earpiece, Balin was asking if he could hear her, but the guy was so desperate he didn't even answer the little witch. He manages to escape from the haunted house and keeps saying to Balin that an emergency happened. Among the people in costumes, there were also men, and he keeps saying this was the worst thing possible. When he was being chased by girls, everything was fine, right guys? But now that men also showed up, he goes into despair. He was running like there was no tomorrow, but the tentacles kept getting in the way. Realizing that the situation was critical, Balin said it was her time to shine, and ends up appearing in the bushes. In a surprising way, the big guy steps on a banana peel, and for those who thought that only happened in cartoons, it ended up happening for real. The big guy falls to the ground, and with that ends up surrounded by hypnotized men trying to grab him. He realized he was screwed, but who shows up to save him is our little witch Balin, who said she had been preparing for this emergency. She had made a magic seal and ends up speaking the magic words to activate the spell. The succubus ends up being imprisoned and several magic seals bind her body. The girl can't even move, and our protagonist asks if it was Balin who had done this. The girl had prepared the whole amusement park beforehand to be her summoning area. That's why she was able to absorb Keela's magic, and the poor girl wasn't understanding anything. She even asks what the hell was happening, and unbelievably all those people ended up turning against her. Our hero knew that she was afraid of men, and Balin explains that people turned against her because the spell backfired on the witch. But since he was a man of honor, he couldn't let that girl be scared with those men trying to attack her. Desperate, she starts screaming, and she told those men not to get any closer. If the boy didn't help, he knew she would fall into despair, especially because she suffered a lot from men making love confessions. It was exactly because of this trauma that the girl acted that way. That's why he wouldn't stand still doing nothing. He remembers when he mentioned Balin's mother to ask for her help. At that time the little witch was extremely angry, but he knew the girl's mother could be a powerful witch able to solve his problems. But it seemed that Balin didn't want to cooperate, and even said that if her mother found out he was a tentacle monster, she would take him for experiments. But he didn't believe that and asked Balin to hand him the phone. With the phone in hand, she kept asking what he wanted that for, but he quickly grabbed it from her and dialed the girl's mother's number. At that exact moment her mother answers, asking what kind of mess her daughter had gotten into this time. But the one talking was Jia, and he asks for her mother's help. On the other side of the line, the witch gives a smile and even said that if he kept begging she would help. Suspecting what our hero was doing, Balin asks for the phone back, but he wasn't gonna give it and said he was calling her mother. "What's up, kid? Hand me the phone right now." "Wait, did you really call my mother?" She starts to get desperate, asking if he was serious. And on the other side of the line, the woman was asking why she would help him. He explains that her daughter, Balan, got herself into a mess. That's why it was her mother's duty to help. And he even explains that there is a tentacle monster and an out-of-control succubus. But the woman seemed to be in a bikini on the beach, enjoying her vacation. And unbelievably, the woman knew all of that, leaving our hero confused. In response, she said she knew everything that was of her interest and even called him Lord of the Tentacles. "Wait, if you know about my situation, you can help me, right?" Giving a little laugh, she said it wasn't that easy. Besides, she was enjoying her vacation in Hawaii and couldn't come back home to help him. But if he wanted to save the succubus girl, he should listen carefully to what she was going to say. But first of all, he should explain why he wanted to save that girl. Our big guy said it's because he saw her past and knew that just like him, she also suffered. After hearing all the explanation, he throws the phone to Balan and runs off to save the girl. The witch mother told our hero that the succubus inside Kila was feeling very hungry for magic, and to solve that was very simple. She just needed to consume the necessary energy. After she satisfied that magical hunger, she would return to normal. With that, the big guy runs and manages to hug her. She doesn't even look that surprised to see Xiao Zheng in front of her, and apologizing for having done all of this, he gives the girl a kiss and even wraps his tentacles around her legs. The girl starts draining his mana and even returns to that succubus appearance. And unbelievably, he thinks that isn't bad at all. On the contrary, it was very good. She starts calling him my dear and says she is happy he came back to her. But the guy doesn't even care about that and goes back to planting another kiss on the girl. Later that ends up going back to normal. And when she opens her eyes, she was in a Ferris wheel. Who was in front of her was Sheol, and she looks a little surprised. But he said she didn't need to worry. Down below, Balan was making that spell to completely erase Keela's memory. He starts apologizing and she asks if by chance he did some spell that erased her memories. Our big guy was willing to tell the whole truth, but at the exact moment to speak, he ended up hesitating and lied again, saying he was Xiong's older brother. He didn't know why, but he couldn't tell the whole truth. It seems he was a little embarrassed. He ends up saying that his little sister wasn't feeling well and left and asked him to take care of Keela. He didn't know why, but he didn't want to see the girl feeling sad. That's why he was telling that story. But at the same time, he knew he was trash because he was deceiving the girl. At that moment, the girl asks why he was saying that. Holding back tears, Keela asks why he kept lying to her. She already knew from the beginning that, in truth, the blonde was Xiao Zheng, and ends up revealing that from the beginning she knew he was a man. Yeah guys, I told you I was suspecting that from the start. Our big guy wasn't expecting that one. He even asks himself if he accidentally let some information slip. She found out that day she went to his house. She had asked her driver to check Xiao Zheng's information, and the driver discovered that in fact Xiao was Xiao Zheng. She already went upstairs dying of rage because he was lying to her and even took a rope and a cutter to finish the boy. But when she got there and touched the door, she felt a strange sensation. Something ended up changing her personality completely. She didn't know why, but our hero suspected it was the spirit of the succubus. Now she wanted an explanation. She wanted to know why every time she got close to him, she ended up losing control. He says she lost control and didn't even remember the things she did, and still says that every time she tried to attack him. Now that she's no longer under the influence of the succubus, the girl gets embarrassed and even asks in a somewhat cute way what she had done to him. Of course he wasn't going to say everything she tried to do, and only said that wouldn't happen again. What do you mean by that? Did we end up doing something? He said yes, and she even mentions that was the first time. And sweating cold, he said it wasn't only once that they did that. The girl gets shocked, tries to hide with great embarrassment, apologizing, and he tries to make her feel at ease. He says it's alright. And down below, Balan was still making the magic circle to completely erase Keela's memory. The girl wouldn't remember anything that happened with Sheol. She asks if they could restart everything from zero. That leaves our big guy a little surprised. She says that when she found out who he really was, she confessed she got very angry, but at the same time confused. But she truly liked our hero. It wasn't just because of the succubus spirit. At that moment he realized that the girl really liked him, guys. He thought it was only because of the demon's influence that she was acting that way. But it wasn't like those mangas where the girl truly falls in love with the protagonist. He gets so surprised that he doesn't even react, and in a cute way she said she knew he was Xiao Zheng. Then he jokes saying that she could call him by his real name, and she gets very close to his face. But at that instant, Bylin ends up activating the seal and holding a branch in her hands, said she would trigger the memory loss. The whole park starts emitting a magical light, and it was done. She ended up losing all her memory. She even asked what she was doing alone in an amusement park. Our protagonist walked past her, but she didn't seem to recognize him. A little confused, she asks if by chance she came there together with someone, right at the moment they were getting along, guys. And all those scenes served as inspiration for Bylin's manga. She even comments that this will give her great scenes and that she will sell a lot of mangas. But our protagonist was mad since he didn't get any advantage from it, as Bylin didn't find out how to break the tentacle curse. At that moment, someone ends up knocking on the door. Since she hadn't ordered food, she goes to peek through the peephole and ends up getting really scared. The guy asks if he should hide, but the girl says no. Who was there was the scariest person in the manga industry, and the guy even starts trembling with fear, asking who it was. The little witch said that who was there was her editor. When opening the door, a very respected woman ends up entering her house, and our protagonist is surprised by who was there and even asks what his math and PE teacher was doing working as an editor. Yeah guys, looks like adult life is not easy at all. The woman literally had 3 jobs and keeps commenting that she is surprised to see Shiel in Bylin's house. She says that adults have many bills and that's why she has to do several side jobs. Her name was Miss Lin, and Bylin keeps saying that she is her comic editor, school teacher, and also worked as an informant on campus. She asks Shio how he thinks she managed to get a transfer so easily to turn into a student in that school. Slamming his hand on the table, he asks the teacher if she knew that Shio was actually him and how she could do those things to him. He was about to mention his tentacle curses, but Bylin shows up to stop him, and whispering, she said the editor only knew human things. She knew nothing about this magical world. Trying to cover up, he asks Miss Lin what she came to do today at her house. Obviously, she came to talk about the comics. Scared to death, Bylin asks if by any chance her work was going to be cancelled, since that was every mangake's greatest fear. Seriously, the editor said no, but she spoke in such a frightening way that Bylin kept suspecting if it really wasn't going to be cancelled. Calm down, Bylin. It won't be cancelled. You can relax. But we need to solve some issues. Since it started getting a little popular, you need to improve some points. Our hero asked if those adult comics also suffered the pressure of being cancelled, and Miss Lin said the publisher would only give Bylin one more arc to prove her story was good. She starts pointing out the weaknesses in Bylin's manga, and our protagonist asks if she ever looks at the comments. She even had great drawings, and the scenes she drew were really impactful. That's because everything she drew was based on things she personally saw, but her characters were totally shallow. They had visual impact, but they didn't cause that much emotion. She even asks the girl if she could say what the synopsis of her own story was. Since she didn't even know how to answer that, it meant her manga had a very weak story. The characters needed to be more real and act in a way more consistent with reality. And she even says Bylin should study a bit more about how relationships work in the real world. And she already starts acting it out. She approaches our protagonist and said this is how romances should exist. Bylin's romances were okay, but they didn't have much depth. She mentioned that all of that was just an act and that if our protagonist got too excited, she would slap him in the face. In other words, she should study more about how dating works. That way her readers would feel more engaged. The guy starts teasing Bylin, saying she really doesn't know how to be romantic. And in a seductive way, Miss Lin said that if they weren't understanding, she could find another way to explain. Or even better, the two of them could act out a romance right now. Hearing that suggestion, the two of them turn red, dying of embarrassment. And Bylin even asks how the subject got to that level. And the guy already says the teacher was misunderstanding everything. He was not her boyfriend. Wait, you're not dating? I thought you were dating in secret since you were always together. And besides, they seemed very close, even doing things only couples did. And now that she realized the two weren't dating, the editor went completely crazy. But they say they are absolutely not dating at all. Alright kids, go on, keep acting anyway. No need to act like this is the biggest sin in the world. A little nervous, our protagonist asks what she meant by that acting thing, and he even imagines that Bylin's manga was going to suffer censorship. The editor said the manga was for adults and had no censorship at all. And besides, the one who had the role of censoring or not was her. And since she was saying that was allowed, then they could do it. I don't know if you guys are really understanding what this editor wants to do. Basically, she wants to give depth and also spice up the relationship between the characters. And for Bylin to perfectly understand what a deep relationship is, she's going to put our protagonist on a date with her. The guy says that if it was that simple, he wouldn't have gone through all that trauma with Keela. And sighing deeply, the teacher said that today's youth are very delicate and ended up deciding she herself would go on a date. She already starts hugging our protagonist. She was even looking like a teenager. And the guy was dying of embarrassment, of course, right? And who was there to draw and write down all the scenes was our dear little witch. She even put on a baby shark costume and warned that it was for her mangaka to pay attention to every detail. Sweating cold, Xiao asked what would happen to him if he called a taxi to leave. The teacher said he could very well do that, but she wouldn't be responsible if the school students found out he was Xiao. Ah no, "Don't worry, I'll go on the date, yes." And he even asked the teacher how she made the students not suspect him. In a seductive way, she said she had already solved everything. She explained to the students that Xiao had to move to another country because of his parents' work. The girls were very sad because they liked our protagonist, and Keela was also bothered, which makes us think she already liked him when he was a man. Well, he never stopped being a man, right? But when he was a student, you get it. She even went to talk to the teacher to know if Xiao was coming back. But since that ended up being erased from her memory, I don't know if she'll be able to remember him anytime soon. Miss Lin said she told that lie to the students, but she didn't know if everyone believed it. And even if he hides who he is, he will still leave traces in this world. Hearing that, the guy gets a little tense and even thinks about what he had done. But now that they already talked a lot, they should take this date seriously. And trapping his arm with her balloon, she asks what he would like to do with her. The guy gets all flustered, dying of embarrassment. And to spice things up, she ends up taking him to a clothing store. The guy hides outside, dying of embarrassment. She picks 2 different outfits and asks which one he would choose for her to wear that night. The guy already starts imagining how she would look wearing the outfit on the left, and the shameless guy thought of that scene in great detail. Next, he imagined the teacher wearing the outfit on the right, and tell me down below, would you like to have a teacher like that? She comes closer and asks why he didn't answer right away, and if by any chance he was fantasizing about her, he should take advantage because it could be his last chance. And she even asks him to go with her to the fitting room to help her change. Trying to drive our protagonist crazy, she keeps asking pretty please, and just by looking at our hero's face, you could tell he was trying his best to hold back. He stretches his hand because he really thought about helping her. Then she jokes asking if he was really going to enter the fitting room with her. That would be very interesting in a manga story, but since it was the real world, she wouldn't let him. And to make the story even more exciting, the protagonist was supposed to act in a counteroffensive. In other words, she was saying he should make her embarrassed because that would make the story even more captivating. But our hero wasn't that skilled in relationships and even says these adults are very shameless. Smiling, she said that was exactly what Balin's manga lacked, male characters with attitude. The guy shouts saying he is not an adult, so he doesn't know how to act that way. And sighing deeply, she thinks today's youth are very weak. At that moment, she notices some co-workers passing through the mall corridor and already panics, hiding in the fitting room. The big guy asks what happened, and she says that if those teachers found out she was going out with a teenager, she'd be screwed. That's why she would stay hidden in the fitting room until the area was clear. But since she was there, she took the chance to try on the clothes. The big guy asks how she ended up in such an embarrassing situation and starts walking outside the store looking for Balin. At that moment, he sees his schoolmates. He couldn't let the girls find out he hadn't moved abroad, so he disappears. The guy hid inside the fitting room so the situation wouldn't get even more embarrassing with the girls. However, Miss Lin was trying on clothes, and when she looked to the side, she got really scared, asking what he was doing there. "Yeah, teacher, didn't you want a man with attitude?" "Well, that's what's happening." The guy blushed, saying it was unexpected. And outside, the saleswoman saw a girl in costume and realized that crazy girl was talking about sneaking into the fitting room. It even seemed like she was talking about flirting. The saleswoman thought that girl was the boy's girlfriend and that he was cheating on her with an older woman. And she even thought that woman was a sugar mommy, so she decided she needed to help the supposed girlfriend find out about the cheating. All motivated, she goes there to ask if she could help the girl. Balin says she didn't need anything, but the saleswoman insisted, telling her to try on some clothes and already pushed the girl into the fitting room. All this with the intention of making the girl find out that her boyfriend was cheating on her with an older woman. And upon entering there, the little witch is surprised because Miss Lin was wearing a very seductive outfit while our protagonist was watching her. Pay attention to the face of this shameless guy. He didn't even try to hide it. All embarrassed, Balin makes up an excuse, saying she didn't want to go in there. Our big guy says Balin didn't need to explain because he already imagined what was happening. And meanwhile, the teacher says they were overreacting a lot, that it wasn't necessary. In her mind, she imagined they were doing that only to have inspiration for the manga. And when the little witch says she's leaving the fitting room, they start pressuring her, saying no one can find out they were inside. He even whispers to his friend that if the teacher kept rubbing on him, the tentacles would appear. At that moment, the teacher asked what they were whispering about and started pressing our big guy with her melons. "I heard you talking about tentacles. What are you whispering there?" This situation was very embarrassing and ended up stirring the tentacle powers even more because he was being pressed like a sandwich, and the weight of the balloons was so big it even knocked our hero down on top of the little witch. And with a naughty face, she keeps saying this would make great manga scenes. And if that's what Balin wanted, she was getting great inspiration. The girl falls on Xiao and keeps saying this is very sudden. Accidentally, she ends up stepping on Xiao's nose. The girl was speaking very loudly, and besides, those were compromising words. Lying on the ground, he keeps asking Balin to help him. And I don't know why, but the girl ended up without her boot. Xiao's luck was that the tentacle magic had been mostly drained by the succubus, so he still hadn't revealed his powers, but it was like holding the strength of a dragon inside his body, and the tentacles started coming out of his pants. The noise was so loud that people outside the store started to hear it, and the employee got worried, thinking it was all her fault, but she never imagined they would start cultivating inside the fitting room. Someone ends up touching the saleswoman's shoulder and tells her that the outfit she was trying on had something wrong, That was our dear Maya, a character who would be introduced from now on. She was hearing those strange noises, and like the employee, she was already an adult. She kept telling the girl that those noises weren't anything serious and even tried to distract her, saying that her dress was untied. Turning around, she started pulling the ribbon very tightly. In a somewhat serious way, she called her friend and, stomping firmly on the ground, said that a maid should be taken seriously. That's why she was dressed like that, because in her head she believed she was a magical girl. The store employee kept asking if she wasn't too old to act that way, but that didn't matter, because her goal was to satisfy the customers. At that moment, someone is thrown out of the fitting room, and it was none other than Miss Lin. She falls right on top of the girl, and the employee even thinks she's doomed, since all that fight was her fault. But when she looks back, she sees some kind of monster. Maya managed to break free and noticed it was a tentacle monster, already getting all excited. Think of some crazy characters. How do they see those tentacles and think it's normal? Our hero loses control of the tentacles and starts lifting Balin, and when he looks forward, the mall was crowded, full of people watching him. The guy desperately asks Balin to help him deal with that. And casting a spell, Miss Lin, who already suspected from the beginning that the two of them weren't normal people, decides to lend a hand since they had been exposed. She kept saying that all her work depended on that and it wouldn't be good if they were discovered. So she used a spell to erase the memory of everyone who saw the tentacles. Balin gets excited because it was a powerful magic, and not even she knew that Miss Lin was also a little witch. Because of that magic, no one would remember what had happened, and that's why Miss Maya ended up fainting. The next day, the scene returns to Balin's house. Our hero was desperate, asking for help, and meanwhile the little witch was just drawing. The guy had one of the tentacles in a blue color and it seemed to have a will of its own, and she was upside down just to watch him doing that. He even asks why she's in that weird position. What's wrong with you? A little later, she tries to check his tentacles. That's because besides having changed color, it seemed that tentacle had the power to keep lifting him to the sky. And she even jokes, saying that it was cool because now he would have his own mount. That makes our protagonist angry, telling her not to keep messing with him. But this problem would be very easy to solve, the girl keeps saying. They just had to use a suppression magic like a blocking ring. She ends up putting that slime on the tentacles so she could suppress their own will. And I don't know about you, but I found this scene really strange. Theoretically it would work, but they would need to see it in practice. And to get him excited and see if the tentacles behaved normally, she started doing strange things and even threw him on the bed. The big guy kept begging her to stop doing that kind of thing because it was uncomfortable. But what she really wanted to see was if he had the succubus mark, and she saw that it was exactly that. What do you mean I have a succubus mark on my body? She said it was simple because he had also managed to drain Keela's energy. That's why he got that mark on his belly. Thinking about it, he said he really did feel like he was draining her magic. And that happened during that other kiss when he already had his male appearance. All excited, Balin keeps saying that people have the power to gather powers from other people. And since we know she likes to collect pictures of students, she kept saying that he should go after a new target. It was that weird girl from the other day, but the guy didn't want to go chasing after any girl. Especially because he already did that with Keela and the curse wasn't broken as agreed. But Balin keeps saying that this power of the tentacles was very good for her because it was giving her lots of inspiration for her manga. And she felt that this weird girl named Maya would be a great protagonist, especially because she felt that Maya was hiding something. When saying goodbye, our big guy said he wouldn't help. Girls like that tend to be very cold and calculating, so he wouldn't put himself in danger again by trying to get close to a crazy girl. However, Balin had set a trap for our hero and ended up activating it. And with that, that blue tentacle appears, throwing him upward. She had lied, guys. She said that thing was a magic suppressor, but in reality it was a controller. Now he was in her hands and would have to do everything she ordered. He even keeps saying that Keela was very cruel. And bringing her face close to the tentacle, she kept saying that he couldn't refuse her request because she was the only one who could solve his problem. Yeah, sorry to say, but you're screwed, my friend. You've become this girl's little dog. If you want to stop being bullied and get stronger, then hurry up and conquer the girls to level up. Surrendering to her, he ends up asking what the plan was. Just by looking at the girl's face, we could already imagine it wasn't a good thing. And when she tells him what he had to do, the guy screams, calling her shameless. The next day, the girls were talking about Shia. On the way back from school, they told each other that the little blonde had changed schools and even felt sorry, because they hadn't had contact with her. But they still had Maya and began hugging the girl. The girl with black hair kept asking Mia for help to study math. Other girls appeared grabbing the girl saying they wanted help in the athletics club. And another one appeared saying she wanted help for a new sweet recipe. We see that the girl with pink hair was very loved and even felt a little embarrassed with those people around her. Calmly, she told everyone to solve things one at a time. She was thinking that those everyday scenes were really unprecedented. But someone caught her attention. At the top of a tree, there was our protagonist acting as if he were Lelouch from Code Geass. He was saying strange things as if he were a villain. Mia's classmates didn't understand anything, and even asked who that person was. One of them asked if that wasn't Xia Zheng, who had changed cities a short time ago. But without giving much importance to the girls, he continued playing the role of villain, saying he had come to this world to eliminate bad girls, and even called Mia to join his clan, which was the Wave of the Dragon Emperor. Extending his cape, he said he would spread pain across the world. However, he slipped. The branch broke and he fell from above, smashing all over the ground. Imagine the protagonist embarrassing himself, guys. For God's sake, this guy here is a warrior, and I know there are people who keep insulting Chio, saying he's delicate, but I would like to see if it were you doing the things this boy has to do. The girls kept saying he looked like an idiot, and even Mia stayed there showing no reaction. Did she not like my acting? Should I stop or keep insisting on this? When Mia was about to leave, he ran like a little puppy and grabbed her foot. In a romantic way, he said he was waiting for a date with her. He tried to laugh like a villain, but deep down he was crying. Wait a minute. When did Shio's personality change so fast? Did you see that shameless guy just touched our dear Maya? The pink-haired girl kept asking her friends to calm down, while the girls got angry, saying that shameless guy touched her foot. Pouting, it looked like she was about to cry. After shaking his hand, she said that it was very exciting. She was extremely curious to know more about Xia Zheng. The big guy went back to the classroom and ended up getting a kick from Balin. He said the embarrassment he went through was so big that he wouldn't be able to go back to attending classes. He didn't understand why playing the role of an idiot would make Maya like him. Climbing on top of the table, Balin said that scene was interesting for people like her and had even recorded it with her camcorder to use later in the mangas. He tried to take her camcorder, saying it was nothing but a prank and that she was just mocking him. But actually it wasn't that, because the little witch had been doing research about Maya. She discovered that her real name was Gongkia and that she was a type of person called Chunibyu. I confess to you that I didn't know what Chunibyu was and had to do some research. Basically, it's middle school syndrome, where a person acts as if they were an anime character, even thinking they have superpowers. Not even our hero knew what that was. After discovering that the girl was a teenager with delusions, he asked if she really had supernatural powers. Balin said that unfortunately she had no powers, she was just a Chunibyu. And believe it or not, this type of person would give great stories for her manga. That's why he should attack this girl and be careful, because she kept stepping on our hero, saying it was for him to use all his skills to make her fall in love. Next, she started giving a leg lock to the big guy, and said he should pay attention to the great show she was already planning. Even if Maya didn't have powers, there was some kind of magical energy around her. With her headphones on, he went to the place indicated for this so-called meeting. They arranged this first meeting in front of a supermarket. He even kept asking the girl what kind of costume that was. And the worst part is that they didn't tell the girl exactly where the place was, they only gave some enigmatic suggestions. With binoculars on her face, Balin said she was curious to know if Maya had discovered the place. No way, how could she discover where we are? At that moment he hears someone calling him little brother and saying that staying out late could be dangerous for a beauty like him. The guy realized it was a respectable woman beside him, and that she was even inviting him to go to her house to play video games. Since our big guy wasn't stupid, he let her hug him. But when he realized Maya was behind him, and it wasn't that woman in front of him, striking character poses, she asked if he had invited another girl to go out before her. The guy didn't understand, and when he looked to the side, saw there was an old woman. "What are you doing, Xiao? That's the other girl, not this old woman." Pouting, Maya asked if he was on a date with another woman. All his plan was destroyed, and he would have to act fast to decide what to do. As the light turned green, he had a brilliant idea, and already pushed the woman, saying he was helping Grandma cross the street. Looking at Maya, he told her to wait a little, because he was doing a good deed. After taking the woman to the other side of the street, she kept shouting, saying she wasn't a grandma. "Now that I've solved this situation, we can return to our meeting, can't we?" She said she was releasing him from his post and that he could say the words to the Demon Queen. All of this was an act, guys, since she was a delusional teenager. The guy knew he would have to go along with her and started making some poses, saying he was at the service of the Demon Queen. He paused for a moment, thinking that it was too embarrassing, and that she would think he was an idiot. However, she ended up liking it, and kept saying that the subordinate should act according to her orders. She went straight to taking a fan, saying she would release the winds of love. I don't know about you watching there, but narrating this here is very embarrassing. She kept waving the fan, saying that it was the wind of love and that it would burn all sadness and anguish. And so she ended up launching a wind power on him. Power in quotes, right? Because she had no power at all, guys. All of that was just her imagination. Deep down, he wanted to tell her to screw off, because it was very embarrassing. Meanwhile, Balin kept talking in the earpiece for him not to act with hostility because she was researching those techniques in her book. She had discovered in otaku books that the character he was playing was from a Japanese comic. Desperate, Balin started reading very quickly how that power worked so our hero would know how to react. He was in a strange pose trying to hear what Balin said in the earpiece, and even made a kind of bored face because that was very embarrassing. Just imagine someone in the middle of the street pretending to launch a Kamehameha at you, and so as not to make the person sad, you have to pretend that the Kamehameha hit you. She even made a sad face since he was not acting accordingly and began to cry about it. On the other side of the line, Balin began cursing, saying that he had to pretend that the wind attack hit him. Surrendering to the crying girl, he ended up pretending that the wind blow threw him away and even jumped back. That made Maya's little eyes shine. She even giggled, saying he was very cute. With that, he had already gained her trust. After holding our big guy's arm, she helped him stand up and asked what power he had. My god, power. I'll have to pretend something stupid too. Go quick, Balin. Research something in the book. Tell me. At that moment, that old woman began crossing the street and said she would not accept being called old by mere teenagers. Besides, they were acting like little kids, and that was the worst offense a Chunabu could receive. In the earpiece, the little witch told our hero to protect Maya using the iron hammer attack. The old woman was there pressing the girl, saying she was acting like a child in the middle of the street, and even began squeezing her face. Of course she began to cry, right? Since she was being scolded by an old woman in the middle of the street. But at that moment she heard our hero's voice. She even turned back to see what he was saying. He decided he would not act, but instead use his real power, and so he ended up releasing his tentacles. He did this in the middle of the street, guys, saying it was the power of the 10,000 abyssal cities. Balin, who was watching from afar, couldn't believe he was doing that. The old woman, furious, said she didn't believe in that kind of power, but ended up surprised, since our protagonist was entangling her with his tentacles and even ended up lifting the old woman. Look at the clothes this old woman was wearing, guys. What do you think she works with? Maya, who was watching all that, was enchanted, because someone was using real powers, and it seemed like she had already seen those tentacles before. Remembering that day in the mall, Miss Lin ended up erasing her memory, but it seemed like she knew the god of the abyss. The big guy kept showing off to Maya, saying his powers were incredible. Since all the characters in this work are strange, she thought that was incredible. Balin asked if he wanted our hero to make them lose their memory, but he said that no one would believe what that crazy old woman was saying. While going away with Maya, he said they wouldn't need to erase her memory, because she clearly had liked him and trusted that she would keep the secrets. From afar, she thanked him, because he had protected her and even spoke in a very cute way. Unexpectedly, she turned and jumped on him. In a seductive way, she said he shouldn't be afraid, and kept acting like she was a little crazy. In her mind, she really was the Demon Queen, and the guy kept wondering why she was on that sign. Holding her short, she said she really liked his performance, would accept being his concubine, and would even offer another reward. Of course, the big guy already started thinking silly things, but what she offered was to guide him to the true face of the world, the inner world. The guy found that very strange, and on the other side of the line, Balin insisted he accept. That would give great pages for the manga. The next day he agreed and went with her to building 2, room 2. That was their club at school. He even said he had never seen that part of the school. The girl tore those posters and said it was all just a disguise. That door was actually a portal to another world. He even managed to see some strange lights. Then his mind went back to normal and he didn't know if it was an illusion or reality. She asked if that wasn't impressive, and he was left not understanding anything. Laughing, she said that if he were an ordinary person without powers, he wouldn't be able to understand what she was talking about. Yeah, my daughter, I didn't understand anything you said, even having powers. Inside that door, he saw a terrifying shadow and even began to feel fear. From inside, someone said they could smell an intruder. Mia kept squealing, asking who could defend her, but our hero was more afraid than she was and even clung to the girl. That ended up causing a romantic scene between them. The girl inside began shouting for her sister. Startled by that romantic scene outside, she became all embarrassed. After entering the club, he asked who that girl was. Maya said her name was Ning Sunshim, but her true identity was the Crimson Walker. She said the girl had an extremely strong evil power, pulling her upside down and began pinching the girl. Sunshim became dazed, not really understanding what was happening, and then pushed the other away. She acted like she was a slave of the Demon Queen and said embarrassing phrases as if she were really an anime character. She apologized for doubting there was an intruder, but in fact it was a guest of the queen. Our hero noticed that this girl didn't seem like the type to have delusions and was just going along to support her friend. But pulling the girl closer, Maya said that Chunchum had the power to create the sacred reliquary, a power capable of destroying the world. The big guy began thinking foolishly, imagining that she created certain types of forbidden artifacts. Noticing our protagonist's red face, Maya said she knew he would show interest. That's why it was for her little sister to show the boy. Pulling out scissors, the girl made an excited face. He ended up refusing, saying he didn't want her to make a new outfit for him. That made them upset, and he knew he would have to stay in character. To convince the friend that the boy was trustworthy, she said that yesterday he had protected her from a clueless old woman. With that, the three would form a fine group. That would be the Asian Magical Secret Society. And they had received a third member. A sewing machine fell to the floor and Maya ran off, saying it was her divine forge of equipment. At that moment, our hero began to believe they were not only seamstresses but magical artisans. The girl gave a serious look and then grabbed her older sister's legs, saying she didn't want to be alone with a new member because she barely knew him. Opening her mouth and crying, she asked if by any chance that boy was her boyfriend. That created a very awkward scene, and making an ugly face, she said she would not share her big sister. Holding the girl's cheeks, she said they were not dating, and even asked why she was so talkative. They were just companions and she should make a new outfit for the team member. Seriously, you're not dating? Rosina said yes and admitted that it was very difficult to find people for her group. Besides, they could not miss the great event of the time rift to enter the illusory world. To make a divine armor set, the first Chunchum should take our hero's measurements. Entering the role, he said she wouldn't need to make clothes for him because he was a lord of darkness. Extending her fingers, Maya said no one had ever defied her will, and leaving left the responsibility to Chunchum to take the boy's measurements. At that moment, she closed the room door and the big guy began to poop his pants from fear. Now that it was just the two of them, she would take the measurements. Although she didn't know when she met her older sister, she was willing to do it to help her. She grabbed our hero by the waist, taking the measurement of his hips. Finding that very suspicious, he asked if it was normal to take measurements that way. Then she lowered her belt and throwing it on the floor, said she was treating him in the most correct way possible, and began opening her legs to take the measurements. And when she did that, she pressed the balloons against his body, and I don't know, guys. Look at her face, it seems she was enjoying that physical contact. Our hero, on the contrary, was feeling very tense, and even asked if that was how she took other people's measurements. The shameless guy even imagined Chunchum taking Maya's measurements. Because of that, he even let out a yell with blushing cheeks. When he realized it, he saw the girl was on top of him and said the boy's measurements were very good and could even serve for women's clothes. Thinking about it, he remembered a blonde girl at school who looked very much like him. The guy swore he would never wear women's clothes, since he was a pissed-off straight guy. But what made her curious was why her sister liked that boy. Making a little excuse, he said it was because they had defeated enemies together. I can already see she's another crazy one who will keep chasing him, he thought. And strangling the boy with the measuring tape, she asked if by any chance he wanted to date her sister. Ah, what? Who said that? I didn't say anything. Ah, no. So you don't want to date her again? He stayed in character and stomping firmly on the ground said he was the Prince of Darkness and only there to control those weak humans. The girl made a face finding that strange and even gave a wicked giggle. Well boy, if you want to win my older sister, I can help you. No, that's not what you're thinking. Besides, I don't need anyone's help to win a girl. Wait, what am I seeing? I'm not responsible for the scenes that are about to follow. At that moment, we were sure that Sunshum was another little crazy one. She began taking off her uniform while the boy asked what the hell she was doing. She said he could have her older sister, but there was a condition. The condition was that he also went out with her. The guy couldn't believe what he was seeing. Comment below if our dear Shia is very unlucky or very lucky. She approached, telling him to decide quickly whether he wanted to be with her or not. Go ahead, answer. Do you want to date me or not? Answer. To make things even more intense, she sat on top of him. The guy looked like he was about to explode. He was already used to girls confessing to him out of nowhere, but they all did it in a very superficial way. However, with Keela it was very different. It seemed that she really liked him, and obviously with Chunchum it was nothing like that. She had an arrogant look and even told the girl that it didn't seem like she really liked him. Having been rejected, she became embarrassed and began putting her uniform back on, asking how someone could want to date a person without really knowing them. He was trying to understand Chunchum's reasons and she said she couldn't say anything. Pushing the girl's head, he said she was very strange and noticed in her eyes that she didn't really like him. While telling her to put on her clothes, she grabbed his hand and began biting his fingers. Yeah guys, and that's how we finished the second part of Tentacle Boy. It was a lot of work to bring this work since it was in Mandarin. I had to translate it several times because it wasn't working out. So one way for you to return the favor for our work is by leaving a like and a comment. Also share this video with your friends. Share it with your friends on WhatsApp, Instagram, Discord, and TikTok too. Let's give some support so the channel can gain more followers. And if you want me to bring part 3 when more chapters are released, tell us. And remember that I leave the names of the works on Discord since it's dangerous to put the name here in the comments. I'm going to recommend 2 works that I'm sure you'll like. They are works made with great care, guys. So we'll see each other there. That's it for now. Thanks and see you later, everyone.